Hey guys, just want to say thanks for tuning in to Wideawakehorror today. Today we've got some true horror stories for you guys to hear. Now, if you enjoy these stories, as always, please smash that like button. And if you're new here, don't forget to hit that subscribe button and join the family. Now, let's enjoy some new stories.
I did not think anything weird was going to happen that night. It was just another Tuesday, cold air, nothing special, and I was mostly bored. I had been swiping out of habit more than hope. Then I matched with her. Her profile was simple, almost too simple. 3 pictures. No bio except for a single line that said I like keeping track of things. I remember thinking that was kind of funny. Organized girl. Cool. We talked for 2 days. Nothing intense. She seemed normal. Sarcastic in a dry way. Into horror movies and old malls. We agreed to meet at this bar downtown that used to be a bowling alley back in the 90s. Now it had dim lighting and old arcade machines. I got there first. I always take places early because I hate walking in after the other person. I sat near the back, under this flickering wall light that made everything look slightly off. Not dark enough to hide, not bright enough to see clearly. She walked in about 10 minutes later. Lawn dart jacket, hair tied back, nothing dramatic. She looked exactly like her pictures. That alone felt like a win. The first hour was fine. We drank, talked about work, talked about how weird dating apps are. She laughed at stuff that was not that funny. She kept her phone face down on the table the whole time. I noticed that because most people check their phones constantly, she barely touched hers. About an hour in, she said she needed the bathroom. She grabbed her phone this time and walked toward the hallway near the old bowling lanes that were now blocked off with black curtains. I sat there, half watching some guy lose badly at an arcade racing game. My phone buzzed in my hand. I assumed it was a random notification. I looked down. It was Tinder. At first, I thought maybe she unmatched me or something weird like that. But when I opened it, I felt my stomach drop. My profile bio had changed. It now said date 7/10 complete. I did not edit it. I never would have written something like that. It looked like it had always been there. Same font, same layout. No sign it was recently changed. I stared at it for a solid minute, thinking maybe I got hacked. Maybe it was some glitch. I refreshed the app. Still there. I logged out and back in and still there. Date 7/10 complete. I felt this weird heat in my face. I checked my edit history. Nothing. I checked my recent activity. Nothing strange. Then I noticed something else. My location history was turned on. I'd never turned that on. It showed a timeline of places. The bar, my apartment, the grocery store from earlier, and below that 6 other locations over the past month that matched different first dates I had gone on. Each one had a small green check mark next to it. I felt like someone had reached inside my chest and squeezed. I looked toward the hallway she had walked down. She was still gone. I opened her profile. It looked normal. Same 3 pictures, same line about keeping track of things. But now I noticed a small icon at the bottom. A gold circle with the number 6 in it. I did not remember seeing that before. I tapped it. Nothing happened. My phone buzzed again. Another Tinder notification. Progress saved. That was it. Just those 2 words. I stood up. I could hear my heartbeat in my ears. I told myself this was some elaborate joke, or maybe a beta feature I did not know about. Maybe Tinder added some stupid dating streak system. But it did not make sense. Why would it change my bio without me doing it? I walked toward the bathroom hallway. The lights back there were even dimmer. The black curtains that covered the old bowling lanes moved slightly like there was air behind them. I could hear faint music coming from somewhere deeper in the building, not the main bar speakers. Something slower. I did not want to look paranoid, so I just stood near the hallway entrance and pretended to scroll through my phone. Another buzz. Date 7/10 archived. Archived. I felt cold all over. A guy brushed past me toward the exit. I had not noticed him before. He looked pale. Not drunk pale. Just drained. His eyes flicked toward me for a split second like he recognized something. I went back to my profile. Now the text had changed again. Evaluation pending. My hands were actually shaking now, and I hate admitting that. I am not dramatic, but this felt wrong in a way that was hard to explain. She finally walked back down the hallway. She looked exactly the same. calm, relaxed. She sat back down like nothing had happened. I sat there staring at her face, trying to see if anything looked different. She smiled slightly, like she was waiting for me to say something. I could not bring myself to mention the profile. Instead, I excused myself and said I needed the bathroom. The hallway felt longer this time. When I reached the bathrooms, I noticed something I had not before. There was a small table set up near the blocked bowling lanes. On it was a clipboard. It should not have caught my attention, but it did. Maybe because it looked out of place, like it belonged in an office, not a bar. I stepped closer. There were photos clipped to the board. Small printed screenshots. Tinder profiles. Men. Under each one was a number written in pen, 1 through 10. Some had a red line through them. I found my face near the bottom. 7. There was a small note under it. In progress. My mouth went dry. I heard movement behind the curtain. Low voices. More than one person. I did not wait around to see who it was. I walked straight past the bathroom and toward the emergency exit sign at the end of the hallway. It was not locked. I pushed it open and stepped into the alley. Cold air hit me hard. I felt like I could finally breathe. My phone buzzed again. Date 7/10 incomplete. Status adjusted. I started walking fast down the alley, not running, just trying to put distance between me and that building. Another buzz. Recalculating compatibility. I opened the app one last time. My profile picture had changed. It was a photo of me sitting at the table from earlier that night. Same lighting, same flickering wall light behind me. Someone had taken it from across the room. Under it, new text appeared. Date 8/10 scheduled. I stopped walking. I had not agreed to anything else. I deleted the app right there in the alley. Full delete. Account removed. Everything. I stood there for a minute listening to cars pass on the street. Nothing dramatic happened. No one chased me. No one called out. I went home and locked my door. Triple-checked it. I barely slept. The next morning, I woke up to my phone vibrating on my nightstand. I had one notification. Tinder. I know I deleted it. I watched the icon disappear. But there it was again. I opened it without thinking. My profile was back. Same photos. Same layout. New text. Date 8/10 complete. And below that, a new line that had not been there before. 2 remaining. I should have left the second I saw his smile change. Not in a dramatic way. Not like in movies where the music drops and the villain face appears. It was small. Barely there. But it was the kind of smile that feels like someone knows something about you that you do not know about yourself. And the worst part is I almost ignored it. I matched with him on a Sunday night when I could not sleep. His profile was clean. Good lighting. No weird angles. Bio said he worked in data security. That sounded boring but safe. He had this calm vibe in his pictures, like someone who would remember your coffee order. We talked for 4 days. He was consistent, but not clingy. He remembered little details, like that I live in an apartment above a pet store and hate the smell when it rains. He said he liked Thai food and suggested this small place near the Riverwalk. Not fancy, not sketchy. Right in that middle zone where you feel comfortable meeting someone for the first time. I got there a few minutes early. The restaurant was one of those long, narrow spaces with brick walls and low-hanging lights. There were maybe 6 tables total. It smelled like basil and garlic and something sweet. I liked it instantly. He walked in right on time. Same as his pictures. Dark jacket, hair neat, slow, confident steps. We hugged awkwardly and sat down. Everything felt normal. The first half hour was fine. We talked about work, about how dating apps feel like job interviews. He asked good questions. Nothing too personal. He laughed at my dumb joke about accidentally liking my own old Instagram post. He did not check his phone once. That is what happened next felt so off. We just ordered our food. The waitress walked away. My phone buzzed on the table between us. I almost ignored it. But something told me to look. It was Tinder. I felt a tiny bit embarrassed, like getting caught checking another app mid-date, but the notification preview was short. Your match has been flagged. That was it. My stomach dropped in this weird, slow way. Flagged for what? By who? Before I could even unlock my phone, he smiled at me, and he asked if I had seen it. My brain kind of stalled for a second. The fact that he knew what the notifications said without me saying anything felt wrong. He was not close enough to read my screen. My phone had been face up but dimmed. I asked him how he knew. He leaned back slightly and said he just had a feeling. That is when I unlocked it. The app opened automatically to his profile. There was a red banner across the top. This user is under review for reported behavior. My heart was beating hard now. I looked up at him. He did not look panicked. He did not look defensive. He looked amused. He said sometimes people misunderstand things. I asked what that meant. He shrugged. Our food arrived at that exact moment, which made everything feel even more unreal. Plates set down, steam rising, normal restaurant sounds, and this bright red warning glowing on my phone. I tried to play it cool. I asked him if he knew why someone would report him. He took a sip of water and said sometimes girls get dramatic if things do not work out. That answer did not sit right with me. It was too clean, too rehearsed. I checked the notification again. There was a small link under the banner that said View Details. I tapped it. It did not show specific accusations, just that multiple users had flagged him for safety concerns and the account was temporarily limited. Multiple users. I looked back up at him. He was watching me, not in a normal way, not like waiting for a reaction, more like observing data. He asked what it said. I told him it just said under review. He nodded slowly. Then my phone buzzed again. Another Tinder notification. Safety team has received additional information. My throat felt tight. I had not reported him. I had not done anything. So who just sent additional information? I clicked again. This time the screen flickered. Instead of his normal profile pictures, there were blurred thumbnails, like censored images. Under each one was a date and location. I recognized one location instantly. My apartment building. Not that night, but 2 days ago. My chest went cold. I scrolled. Another location, the coffee shop I go to every morning before work. Another one, the gym near my office. These were not public details on my Tinder. These were real places for my routine. I looked up slowly. He was still calm, still steady. I asked him if he had been near my apartment recently. He tilted his head slightly and asked why I would think that. My hands felt heavy. I could barely hold my phone steady. Another buzz. New report added. This time when I opened it, there was text. Pattern of proximity behavior confirmed. What does that even mean? I felt like the app was speaking in code. I stood up suddenly and said I needed the bathroom. I grabbed my phone and walked quickly toward the back of the restaurant. The hallway was narrow, painted dark green. The bathroom door creaked when I pushed it open. I locked myself in a stall and tried to breathe. I opened Tinder again. His profile picture had changed. It was a photo of me walking into the restaurant earlier that night, taken from behind. Time-stamped 7 minutes ago. I felt dizzy. I checked the account details. There was a small line under his name now. Monitoring active. My phone buzzed again. Your match has been flagged by 6 users in your area. 6 users in my area. I scrolled down. The blurred thumbnails were becoming clearer. They were screenshots of security footage. Grainy but recognizable. Me entering my building. Me unlocking my car. Me sitting alone at the coffee shop. I had not noticed anyone taking photos. Ever. My phone vibrated again. Account access shared. Shared with who? I clicked into settings. Under connected devices, there were 2 active sessions. My phone. And another device labeled local network node. I did not know what that meant, but it felt bad. I walked out of the bathroom. He was still at the table, eating, calm. When he saw me, he smiled again, softer this time. I told him I was not feeling well and needed to leave. He did not argue. He just nodded and said he understood. As I grabbed my bag, my phone buzzed one last time. Safety review complete. I froze. I looked down. The red banner on his profile was gone, replaced with a green check. No current issues detected. My chest felt hollow. I walked toward the exit. As I pushed the door open, my phone buzzed again. Thank you for participating. Participating in what? I stepped outside into the cold air. The Riverwalk lights reflected on the water. Everything looked normal. I opened Tinder one more time. My profile now had a small gray badge next to it. Observer. I had never seen that before. I clicked it. This account has contributed to ongoing monitoring efforts. I deleted the app immediately. Full delete. Account deactivated. I stood there shaking, staring at our reflection in the dark phone screen. Behind me, through the restaurant window, I could see him still sitting at the table. Not eating anymore. Just watching the door. Watching me. I walked home instead of calling a ride. I kept checking over my shoulder the whole way. When I finally got inside my apartment, I locked the door and leaned against it. My phone buzzed. Even though Tinder was gone. Unknown sender. Thank you for your data. I did not open it. I turned my phone off completely and left it on the kitchen counter. I have not reinstalled Tinder since. Sometimes when I walk to the coffee shop, I feel like I am being measured. Not followed exactly. Just logged. I did not think I was doing anything wrong. That is what makes it stick with me. I was just sitting there, eating pasta, nodding at the right times, trying to be polite. And apparently that was the problem. I matched with him on Tinder after a long break from dating apps. I had deleted it for a few months because everything started feeling the same. Same bios, same jokes, same conversations. When I reinstalled it, his profile stood out because it was almost too detailed. Long bio about psychology, behavior patterns, how people present themselves differently online versus in person. He said he enjoyed studying reactions. I thought it was just him trying to sound interesting. We talked for about a week. He asked a lot of questions about how I handle stress, what makes me uncomfortable, whether I consider myself emotionally expressive. I answered casually, not thinking it mattered. He suggested we meet at this small Italian restaurant in a quiet neighborhood. Not downtown, not super crowded, more of a local spot. I looked it up and it had decent reviews, nothing sketchy. The place was narrow with brick walls and framed black and white photos of the city from the 80s. Soft yellow lighting, only about 8 tables total. When I got there, it was maybe half full. A couple in the corner arguing quietly, 2 older women sharing wine near the window. He was already there when I walked in. That was the first thing that felt slightly off. He had chosen a table against the wall where he could see the entire room, including the entrance. I had to sit with my back to the window. He stood up quickly when he saw me, almost knocking his chair back. He smiled too wide, like he was trying hard to seem relaxed. We ordered food. He barely touched his menu before deciding. I noticed his phone was already in his hand, Tinder open. I joked about him still swiping mid-date. He said he liked to monitor things. I thought he meant notifications. Throughout the first 20 minutes, he kept refreshing Tinder. Not casually, obsessively. Swipe down, wait, swipe down again. His thumb moving in this fast, repetitive motion. I asked if he was expecting a message. He said not exactly. He kept glancing at me between refreshes, like he was comparing something on his screen to my face. I tried to ignore it, talked about work, about my dog, about how I live in an apartment above a bakery that smells like sugar in the mornings. He nodded but seemed distracted. Then he muttered something under his breath. You are not reacting like the others. I thought I misheard him. I asked what he said. He shook his head and said nothing, but he refreshed Tinder again. This time, his face tightened. He leaned closer to his phone, refreshed again. I felt uneasy. I asked if everything was okay. He looked up at me with this almost confused expression. He said I was supposed to have noticed by now. Noticed what? He did not answer directly. Instead, he turned his phone slightly toward himself and refreshed again. I leaned forward a little, trying to see. I caught a glimpse of something before he angled it away. It looked like a live count. A number next to my name. That did not make sense. I asked him if he was okay. He leaned back suddenly, frustrated. Said this never takes this long. I felt my chest tighten. What never takes this long? He rubbed his forehead and said usually by this point they react. React to what? He stared at me like I was failing a test. My phone buzzed. I glanced down. Tinder notification. New profile view. I frowned. I was on a date. Why would I be getting profile views? I opened it. There was a notification banner at the top. Activity detected during in-person interaction. I felt my stomach drop. I looked up at him. He was refreshing again, faster now. Sweat forming his hairline. He muttered again that was not reacting like the others. I asked him directly what he meant. He leaned in and lowered his voice. He said normally when he starts the session, there is a visible change. Session. I felt cold. I asked what session. He glanced at my phone. Asked if I had opened Tinder recently. I told him I just did because of a notification. He nodded quickly. Then he refreshed again. I leaned across the table, and this time I saw it clearly. On his screen, under my profile picture, there was a small timer counting upward. 0:27:43. Next to it, a label that said subject stable. I felt dizzy. I asked him what that was. He froze for a second, then said it was a beta feature. I did not believe that. He refreshed again. The timer kept counting. Subject stable. I opened my own Tinder. There was nothing unusual on my end except another notification. Profile engagement spike. I had no idea what that meant. He stood up suddenly, then sat back down quickly. He looked around the restaurant like he expected someone to walk in. I realized something else. There was a small black device clipped to the edge of our table near his side. It looked like a portable Wi-Fi hotspot or something similar. I pointed at it. He quickly covered it with his hand. Said it was just his charger. It was not plugged into anything. My phone buzzed again. I looked down. New message. From him. Even though he was sitting right there. The message said smile. I looked up slowly. He was staring at me intensely. Refreshing again. Timer now at 0:32:10. Subject stable. He muttered louder this time that I was not reacting like the others. That usually by now there are signs. I asked what signs. He swallowed hard. Said elevated heart rate, visible discomfort, attempts to leave. I felt anger cut through the fear. I told him I was uncomfortable. He stared at his phone. Refreshed. The label changed. Subject unstable. His eyes widened slightly. He refreshed again. The timer reset to 0:01. Subject initializing. I felt my pulse spike. I stood up immediately. He reached across the table, not grabbing me, but blocking my path slightly. He whispered that if I leave now it ruins the data. That word again. Data. I pushed his arm away and stepped back. People at the next table glanced over. He looked panicked now. Refreshing rapidly. The timer on his phone kept resetting. Subject initializing. Subject initializing. He muttered that it never looks like this. That it should have progressed. I grabbed my bag. He stood up too fast, knocking his chair over. The sound drew attention from the whole room. I walked toward the exit. My phone buzzed one last time. Session terminated. I did not open it. I walked out into the cool night air without looking back. When I got home, I deleted Tinder completely. A few hours later, my phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. Incomplete trial. I blocked it. Sometimes I wonder what would have happened if I had reacted differently. If I had panicked sooner. Or later. What bothers me most is the way he looked at me like I was not a person. Just a variable that refused to behave. I knew the night was wrong when I saw my own face on her profile before I had ever met her. But that realization did not hit all at once. It crept up on me slowly, like my brain was trying to protect me from putting the pieces together too fast. We matched on a Sunday afternoon. Her profile was low effort but interesting. A couple mirror selfies, one blurry picture that looked like a carnival, and a photo of her sitting on a park bench with the city skyline behind her. Her bio said she liked collecting moments. That sounded harmless enough. We talked for about a week. She was casual, sometimes disappearing for hours, then coming back with random deep questions. She asked what my favorite season was, what kind of photos I keep on my phone, whether I prefer candid pictures or posed ones. I thought she was just into photography or social media. We agreed to meet at this night market that pops up every few months near the old train station. Lots of food trucks, string lights hanging overhead, people walking around with paper trays of noodles and lemonade. It felt busy and safe. I got there around 7 p.m. The place was crowded. Live music playing from a small stage, kids running around, couples holding hands. I felt relaxed. She texted that she was near the entrance by the old brick arch. I found her standing under one of the string lights. She looked like her pictures, same haircut, same slightly tilted smile. She hugged me quickly and said she was glad I came. We walked around for a bit, grabbing food from different stalls. Everything felt normal. She joked about overpriced fries that were like $9 for a tiny portion. We laughed about how everyone there was pretending it was not freezing outside. After about 30 minutes, she suggested we sit near the old train tracks where there were fewer people. It was still part of the market area, just slightly dimmer lighting and fewer crowds. We found a wooden bench facing the tracks. She seemed excited suddenly, like she had been waiting for something. She pulled out her phone and said we should take a selfie. I did not think twice about it. We leaned in close. She held her phone up. The string lights behind us created a warm glow. She snapped the picture. I smiled and said, "Let me see it." She looked at the screen for a second, then smiled wider. Instead of handing me her phone immediately, she tapped a few times. Then she turned the screen toward me. It was the selfie we had just taken, but it was not in her camera roll. It was on her Tinder profile, already posted, with a timestamp. Last year. My stomach dropped so hard it felt physical. I stared at the screen. It was the exact same photo. Same jacket I was wearing, same background lights, same angle. Even the slight tilt of my head was identical. Under the picture was a small date, August last year. That was impossible. I had never been to this night market before tonight. I told her that was not funny. She looked confused. Said, "What do you mean?" I pointed at the date. She shrugged lightly and said sometimes Tinder glitches timestamps. But the background in the photo on her profile was slightly different. The string lights looked dimmer. There were fewer people visible behind us. And my hair was shorter in the profile picture, like from months ago. I felt dizzy. I grabbed her phone from her hand, not aggressively, just quickly. I scrolled through her profile pictures. There it was, the same selfie, posted between two older photos. I tapped it. The timestamp was clear. Last year. I checked her other photos. In one of them, she was sitting on that same bench by the tracks, alone. I zoomed in on the background. There was a figure standing behind the bench. Blurry. Looked like me. But I had never been there. I handed her phone back slowly. Asked her how she edited that. She looked genuinely confused. She said she did not edit anything. She said the photo had always been on her profile. I felt like my brain was misfiring. I pulled out my own phone, opened Tinder, went to her profile. The selfie was there, but I knew it had not been there before. I had read her profile carefully when we matched. I remember thinking she did not have many pictures. This was new, and not new. I looked at the timestamp on my end. Last year. I checked the details. The photo had been uploaded 11 months ago. I felt my chest tighten. I asked her when she had last updated her profile. She said she barely uses the app. Maybe a year ago. I told her I was not joking. That is literally me in that picture. She smiled slightly. Said, "Of course it is you. We just took it." I told her the date says last year. She looked at the screen again, then back at me. Then she said something that made my stomach twist. She said sometimes things take time to line up. I did not understand what that meant. I scrolled further down her profile. There were more photos. In one of them, she was at a coffee shop. Across from her, slightly out of focus, was a guy who looked exactly like me. Same jacket. Same watch. Even the same small scar on my chin. The timestamp on that one was 6 months ago. I have never been to that coffee shop. I do not even recognize it. I asked her directly if she had photoshopped my face into her pictures. She laughed softly, said that would be a lot of effort. I felt exposed standing there by the tracks, like something was very wrong and no one else could see it. I opened my camera roll, looked at my own selfies from the past year. In one of them, taken in my apartment, there was a reflection in the window behind me. A faint outline of someone standing near the glass. It looked like her. My hands started shaking. I zoomed in. The reflection was blurry, but the outline matched her shape. I do not remember anyone being in my apartment when I took that. I looked up at her slowly. She was watching me, calm, almost pleased. She asked if I believed in timing. I did not answer. I felt like the ground was not steady. I checked the selfie on her profile again. Zoomed in on my face. There was something off. My expression was slightly different from the one we just took. Subtle, like a half second earlier. I opened the camera app on my phone. Checked the selfie we just took together. It was not there. It had not saved to my phone. I looked at her phone again. The selfie on her profile looked more natural than the one we had just posed for, like it had been taken without me knowing. My heart was pounding so hard I could hear it in my ears. I stepped back from the bench, told her I needed air. She did not follow. She just sat there, watching. I walked toward the brighter part of the market, pulled out my phone again, refreshed Tinder. Her profile now showed a new picture at the top. The selfie. But the timestamp was today, like it had just updated. I felt sick. I scrolled down. The older version of the same selfie was gone, replaced, as if it had never been there. I turned around. She was still sitting on the bench by the tracks, not moving, just looking at her phone. I unmatched her immediately, closed the app, walked straight to my car. That night, I went through every photo on my phone from the past year, zoomed into backgrounds, reflections, windows. In more than one picture, there was a shape behind me that did not belong. I do not know how long she had been in my background before I noticed. I deleted Tinder the next morning. Sometimes when I take a selfie now, I check the timestamp twice, and I always look behind me. The first thing I noticed about him was how normal he looked. Not movie villain normal, just regular, average haircut, plain jacket. The kind of guy you would not look at twice in a grocery store. And that is honestly what made the whole thing worse later, because there was nothing dramatic to warn me. We matched on Tinder on a Friday night. His bio was simple. Worked in marketing, like basketball. Dog person. One picture with friends, one in a gym mirror, one outside some stadium. Nothing creative. Nothing weird. We talked for about 5 days. He responded consistently. Not too fast, not too slow. He asked about my job and my hobbies. He asked if I live alone. I told him yes, but that my sister lived close by. That was true. He suggested we meet at this indoor food hall downtown. It was one of those places with different food stalls around the edges and long shared tables in the middle. Bright lights, loud music, tons of people. It felt safe. Crowded enough that nothing bad could happen. I got there a little early and grabbed a table near the center. There were families around, couples, groups of friends. The smell of fried food and grilled meat was strong. It felt chaotic, but in a normal way. He showed up about 10 minutes later. Same as his photos. Maybe a little shorter than I expected. He smiled when he saw me and waved. We hugged quickly and went to grab food from different stalls. I got tacos. He got a burger. We sat down and started talking. The first 20 minutes were completely fine. He was polite, asked questions, Laughed at my story about accidentally locking myself out of my car last week. Nothing felt off. Then I noticed he kept glancing at my phone. Not obviously staring, just quick flicks of his eyes whenever it lit up from random notifications. I ignored it. Halfway through eating, he asked if I had been on many dates recently. I said a few. He asked if any of them went well. I shrugged and said nothing serious. He nodded slowly. My phone buzzed on the table. I glanced down. Tinder notification. That was weird because we were already matched and sitting together. Curiosity made me open it. It was a message. From him. While he was sitting right across from me. The message said, "Don't make a scene." My heart jumped so hard I almost dropped my phone. I looked up at him immediately. He was mid-sentence, talking about some project at work like nothing had happened. I stared at him. He kept talking calmly. I looked back down at my phone. The message was real. Time stamped just seconds ago. I looked up again. He stopped talking and tilted his head slightly. Asked if everything was okay. I said yes automatically. I felt heat rising in my face. I typed back on Tinder while keeping my face neutral. "Why did you send that?" He did not pick up his phone. He just watched me. My phone buzzed again. "Because you look like you're about to." I felt my chest tighten. I had not done anything dramatic. I had just looked up quickly. I tried to keep my breathing steady. I typed, "Are you joking?" Another buzz. No. I looked around the food hall. People laughing. Trays clattering. Normal sounds. I felt suddenly exposed. Like everyone could see something I could not. I asked him calmly if he had just messaged me. He smiled slightly and said he had not touched his phone. His phone was face down on the table. I could see both his hands. I looked at his phone closely. No movement. No vibration. My phone buzzed again. "Don't draw attention." I felt a flash of anger. I typed, "What are you talking about?" Buzz. "You are reacting differently than expected." My stomach dropped. Expected by who? I looked at him again. He was watching me carefully now. Not smiling. Just observing. I felt like my skin was buzzing. I typed stop. "Buzz. That is not how this works." My breathing started getting heavier. I pushed my chair back slightly. He leaned forward a bit. Soft voice, asking if I was okay. Like he was concerned. My phone buzzed again. "Sit back down." I looked at him. He had not moved. I felt like I was losing track of what was happening. I opened his profile. We were still matched. I went to the chat. The messages were there. Clearly from him. I refreshed the app. The messages disappeared. Like they had never been sent. I stared at the blank chat screen. Then my phone buzzed again. A new message appeared. "Don't test the system." I felt cold all over. I showed him my phone. Asked if he saw this. He leaned in and looked at the screen. For a second, I saw something change in his eyes. Not surprise. Recognition. But when he spoke, he said he saw nothing unusual. On his end, our chat showed only our old messages from earlier in the week. I checked his phone. He hesitated before turning it toward me. His screen showed nothing new. No recent messages. I felt trapped between two realities. Mine, where messages were appearing, and his, where everything looked normal. My phone buzzed again. "Do not escalate." I suddenly noticed something else. Every time a message came through, he blinked slowly. Almost like he was counting. I decided to test something. I put my phone face down on the table. Waited. 10 seconds. Buzz. He blinked. I did not look at my phone. He kept talking about work casually. Another 10 seconds. Buzz. He blinked again. My heart was pounding so loud I could barely hear the music. I grabbed my phone and stood up. He immediately reached across the table and grabbed my wrist. Not violently. Just firm. His grip was strong. He leaned closer and said quietly that there was no need to panic. My phone buzzed again in my hand. "Don't make a scene." The exact same words as the first message. I pulled my wrist back hard. People at the table next to us glanced over. He let go instantly. Put his hands up slightly like he had done nothing wrong. Concerned expression. I stepped back from the table. My phone buzzed again. Too late. I did not even look this time. I walked straight toward the exit. I could feel them watching me the entire way. I pushed through the glass doors into the parking lot. My phone buzzed nonstop now. One after another. Calm down. Come back. This will look bad. I got into my car and locked the doors. My hands were shaking. I opened Tinder. His profile was gone. Unmatched. I checked the chat. Completely empty. Like we had never spoken. My phone buzzed again. This time not Tinder. Unknown number. Just one message. Public reactions complicate data. I turned my phone off. Sat there in the parking lot for almost 10 minutes before driving home. I have not gone back to that food hall since. Sometimes when I get random app notifications now, even harmless ones, my chest tightens for a second. Like something's about to tell me how to behave. I knew it was going to be a weird night when she sent me a screenshot of our conversation before we had even had it. That sounds confusing, but that is exactly what happened. I matched with her on a Monday night while I was half asleep. Her profile had this almost too perfect vibe. Clean apartment in the background of her photos, soft lighting, captions that sounded thoughtful but slightly off. Her bio said she believed in planning ahead. I remember thinking that just meant she liked calendars and to-do lists. We talked for a few days. She was sharp, funny in a dry way. She asked questions that felt deeper than normal app small talk. What do you usually argue about in relationships? How do you react when someone disappoints you? Do you tend to walk away or stay and fix things? I answered casually. I did not think much of it. We agreed to meet at this quiet bookstore cafe on the edge of town. Not downtown. Not busy. Kind of tucked away in a shopping strip that closes early. It was open until 10 p.m., and we planned for 8. I got there first. The place smelled like old paper and coffee. Shelves lined the walls. There were only 2 other people inside, both sitting far apart with laptops. She walked in exactly at 8, not a minute early or late. She looked like her pictures. Dark sweater, hair pulled back, calm expression. She smiled politely when she saw me and gave me a quick hug. We ordered drinks and sat at a small wooden table near the back corner between the fiction shelves and a window that looked out at the empty parking lot. Everything started normal. We talked about books, about work, about how dating apps make people act like they are shopping for personalities. Then about 30 minutes in, she reached into her bag and pulled out her phone. She said she wanted to show me something funny. I expected a meme or some weird tweet. Instead, she turned her screen toward me. It was a screenshot of a text message conversation between us, but it was not real. The messages were not from anything we had actually sent. The timestamps were dated 3 weeks in the future. The conversation showed us arguing. In the screenshot, I was accusing her of being controlling. She was accusing me of being distant. The argument escalated. Harsh words. Emotional lines that felt too specific. I stared at it, trying to process. I told her that was not real. She nodded calmly. She said not yet. I laughed because I thought it was some elaborate joke. She did not laugh. She swiped to the next screenshot. Another argument. Different topic. This time it was about me canceling plans. The date on that one was 2 months from now. I felt my stomach tighten. I asked her what this was. She said she liked to prepare for potential conflict. She said patterns are predictable. People always end up arguing about the same core issues. She wanted to rehearse it. Rehearse it. Like we were actors. I told her that was intense. She said it did not have to be. She said if we talk through it now, we can avoid it later. I tried to joke that we just met. She nodded and said exactly. She swiped again. Another screenshot. This one was worse. It showed me apologizing repeatedly, begging her not to leave. The timestamp was 6 months from now. I felt uncomfortable in a way I could not explain. Not scared exactly. just unsettled, like she had already decided how everything would go. I asked how she made those. She said she writes potential scripts based on personality indicators. She had analyzed our messages from Tinder. My tone, my word choice, response timing. She said most people follow predictable emotional arcs. I sat back in my chair. The cafe felt quieter than before. I glanced toward the counter. The barista was reading something, not looking at us. She asked if I wanted to try the first one. I asked what that meant. She said we could act it out. See how it feels. Adjust the language if needed. I felt a flash of irritation. I told her I was not interested in pretending to argue about things that have not happened. She tilted her head slightly. She said they will happen. It is just a matter of timing. I felt my phone buzz in my pocket. I pulled it out. No notification. I opened my messages anyway. There was a new text thread at the top. Her name. But it was blank. I tapped it. Inside were messages. For me. The same words from the screenshot argument. I felt my chest tighten. The timestamps were from the future date she showed me. I scrolled up. There were more threads, all labeled with different dates, all showing arguments we had not had. I looked up at her slowly. She was watching my reaction carefully. She asked if I saw the pattern. I asked how those messages were on my phone. She said maybe my phone predicts like she does. That did not make sense. I had never texted her outside of Tinder. I checked my actual text app. No such thread. Only in this one strange conversation view that did not look like any app I recognized. I closed it. It disappeared. Gone. She leaned forward slightly. She asked if I wanted to rehearse now or later. Her tone was calm. Too calm. I stood up. The chair scraped against the floor. One of the people near the front glanced back briefly. I told her this was weird and I was leaving. She did not react dramatically. She just looked disappointed. She said avoiding rehearsal does not change the outcome. I walked toward the exit. My heart was beating hard now. As I pushed the door open, my phone buzzed. A real text this time. Unknown number. The message matched the first line of the argument screenshot. Word for word. I froze outside the cafe. Cold air hitting my face. I turned around slowly. Through the window, I could see her still sitting at the table, looking down at her phone. Not at me. My phone buzzed again. Another line from the fake argument. I blocked the number immediately. Deleted Tinder. Deleted everything connected to her. I drove home too fast. That night, around midnight, my phone buzzed again. Same unknown number. Just one message. Practice makes perfect. I changed my number the next day. For weeks after, I would sometimes start typing a message to someone and feel like the words were not mine, like they had already been written somewhere else. Sometimes I think about those screenshots, about how specific they were, and how close some of those lines felt to things I might actually say. I never saw her again. But every time I get into a disagreement with someone now, even a small one, I wonder if I am following a script I never agreed to. I noticed the word change before I even realized why my stomach dropped. It was small, just one word, but it felt like the room tilted when I saw it. Acquired. That is not a normal word to see on a dating app bio while you are literally sitting across from the person. I matched with him 3 days before we met. His profile was clean. Gym picture, dog picture, one photo of him hiking somewhere with mountains in the background. Bio said he worked in logistics and liked cooking. Nothing weird. Nothing dramatic. We talked casually. He was not overly flirty. He asked about my job, my favorite food, whether I live alone. I told him I had a roommate. Again, small life for safety. He did not question it. He suggested this new fusion restaurant downtown. One of those trendy places where the menu does not have clear descriptions and the plates are small but cost like $25 each. I almost said no because I did not want to spend that much, but he insisted it was worth it. The place had dim lighting and exposed brick walls. Candles on every table. Soft music playing from speakers you could not see. It felt intimate but still public enough. I got there first. He arrived about 5 minutes later, right on time. He looked like his pictures. Broad shoulders, trimmed beard, confident walk. We sat down and ordered drinks. Everything felt fine. Normal date energy. He talked about work trips, about how he liked efficiency, about how he believed in optimizing everything in life. That word stuck with me later. Optimizing. Halfway through dinner, I pulled out my phone because it buzzed. I thought it was my friend checking in. It was Tinder. Not a message. Just the app icon notification. Curiosity made me open it. It opened straight to his profile. That alone was weird because usually it opens to messages. I stared at his bio. It had changed. It now said acquired. Nothing else, just that word. I blinked. I knew what his bio had been before. I had read it twice when we matched. It had said something about cooking and hiking. Now it was just acquired. I felt confused more than scared at first. Maybe he was editing it for some reason. I looked up at him. He was watching me. Not smiling. Not confused. Just watching. I asked him if he changed his bio. He glanced down at his own phone, which was sitting next to his plate. Then he looked back at me and asked what it said. I turned my phone slightly so he could see. Acquired. He smiled slowly. That was when my chest tightened. He picked up his phone casually and opened Tinder in front of me. I watched his screen. I watched his own profile load. On his phone, the bio still said the original text about cooking and hiking. I felt a wave of confusion. I checked mine again. Still acquired. I refreshed. Same word. I laughed nervously and said maybe it was a glitch. He shrugged. Said apps are weird sometimes. But he did not look surprised. Our food arrived. Small plates arranged carefully. Neither of us touched them right away. I could not stop thinking about that word. Acquired. Like an object, like inventory. I closed Tinder and tried to focus on conversation. He asked me if I enjoyed being pursued. I said sometimes. He asked if I believed in ownership in relationships. I said it sounded intense. He smiled faintly. I felt I was missing something. My phone buzzed again. Another Tinder notification. Profile updated. My heart started racing. I opened it. His bio now said processing. I looked up immediately. He was not touching his phone. His hands were folded calmly on the table. I checked his screen again. On his phone, nothing had changed. The original bio is still there. I asked him if he had some kind of premium feature that lets you test bios. He shook his head slowly. He said he liked how observant I was. My stomach twisted. I went into my own profile settings. Nothing strange. No sign of packing. I went back to his profile. Processing. I felt like I was being monitored in real time. Like someone was updating it based on me specifically. I looked around the restaurant. Other couples talking quietly. Waiters moving between tables. Nothing obviously wrong. My phone buzzed again. Profile updated. I hesitated before opening it. When I did, the word had changed again. Secured. My breathing felt shallow. I told him this was not funny. He leaned back slightly in his chair. He said, "What makes you think it is about you?" I stared at him. Because I am here. Because this started when we sat down. He tilted his head slightly. He asked if I felt claimed. That word hit harder than the others. Claimed. I said no. He nodded like he expected that answer. Then my phone buzzed again. Profile updated. I did not want to look. But I did. Acquired. Back to the first word. I scrolled down. There was a new line under it. Asset 1 confirmed. My vision blurred for a second. I looked up at him and asked what the hell that meant. He finally reached for his phone again. Slowly. He unlocked it and turned it toward me. On his screen, his Tinder bio now matched mine. Acquired. Asset 1 confirmed. My stomach dropped completely. He said some people treat dating like chance. He prefers strategy. I pushed my chair back slightly. He did not move. He said he studies patterns. How people respond to subtle language shifts. How long it takes for anxiety to surface. I felt like my skin was too tight. I grabbed my phone and tried to unmatch him. Error. Could not complete request. I tried again. Error. He watched calmly. Then my phone buzzed. Profile updated. Retained. I felt a rush of panic. I stood up. The candle on the table flickered. A few people glanced over. He stayed seated. He said if I leave now, the status changes. I asked to what? He smiled. I did not wait for the answer. I walked toward the exit, heart pounding. My phone buzzed with every step. Profile updated. In transit. I pushed through the restaurant doors into the cool night air. Profile updated. Unsecured. I kept walking toward my car. Profile updated. Recovering. I got inside my car and locked the doors. Profile updated. Lost asset. I blocked him on Tinder. Deleted the app completely. My phone buzzed one last time before the icon disappeared. Profile finalized. I did not open it. I drove home shaking. Later that night, curiosity got the better of me. I reinstalled Tinder. New account. New email. I searched for him. His profile popped up immediately. Same pictures. Same smile. Bio said seeking acquisitions. I deleted the app again. I do not know how he did it. Maybe it was some weird psychological trick. Maybe it was just timing and coincidence. But sometimes when my phone glitches and random apps refresh on their own, I think about that word. Acquired. Like I was never just a date. I used to think sharing your location with someone was overkill. Like something only paranoid people did after watching too many crime videos. Now I do not go anywhere without it on. And the reason is one date that started completely normal and ended with me sitting in my car at 1 a.m. watching my own location dot move on a map when I was not even driving. I matched with her on a random Thursday afternoon. Her profile was simple. 2 pictures outside, one in her car, one of her holding a coffee cup in front of some mural. Bio said she liked night drives and quiet conversations. That line should have been neutral, but was not. We talked for about a week. She replied fast, but not desperate. She asked about my job, my hobbies, whether I live alone. I told her I had a roommate. That was not true, but I said it sometimes on apps just to feel safer. She reacted with a thumbs up emoji. Nothing weird. We agreed to meet at this overlooked spot outside town. It is one of those places where people park and look at the city lights from a hill. There is a small gravel lot, a wooden fence, and usually a couple cars with people just sitting inside talking. It felt public enough. Open space. No dark alleys. I told my sister where I was going. She always jokes about being my emergency contact, but she tracks my location through a family app. We both have it on. I got there around 9 p.m. It was colder than I expected. The wind was pushing against my car. There were 3 other cars parked already. She arrived 5 minutes later. Her headlights cut across the lot, then turned off. She stepped out wearing a long coat and boots, same as her pictures. Nothing dramatic. She smiled when she saw me and waved. We decided to sit in her car because she said the heater in mine probably was not great. That was true. My car is old. Her car was newer, clean, smelled like vanilla air freshener. We talked about normal stuff at first. Music, road trips, dumb high school stories. She laughed a lot, but her eyes stayed focused in a way that felt intense. About 20 minutes in, she leaned back in her seat and asked what time I told people I would be home. It felt like a strange shift. I said I did not give an exact time, just later tonight. She frowned slightly. Not dramatic, just subtle. Then she asked if anyone knew exactly where I was. I told her my sister had my location. That is when her whole expression changed. Not angry. Not scared. Just annoyed. She asked if that meant someone could see this exact spot. I nodded. She leaned forward and looked out the windshield like she was checking the lot. She asked how often my sister checks. I said probably not often unless I stop moving for a long time. She went quiet. The wind outside was louder now. Her car rocked slightly. I pulled out my phone to show her the app, half joking about how my sister is overprotective. The map showed my blue dot right on the overlook. Steady. She stared at the screen for a second longer than necessary. Then she smiled again, but it looked forced. She said that was smart of me. After that, the mood shifted. She seemed distracted. Kept glancing at her own phone, which was face down near the cup holder. I tried to lighten the mood by suggesting we get coffee somewhere instead. She said she preferred staying here a bit longer. Another 10 minutes passed. Then she asked if I ever turned location sharing off. I laughed and said not really. She asked what would happen if my phone died. I told her the app would just show my last known location. She nodded slowly. I started to feel uneasy. Not because of what she said specifically, but because of how focused she was on that topic. I checked my phone again. Still normal. Blue dot, battery at 42%. She suddenly suggested we take a short drive down the road to a quieter pull-off she knew. I looked out at the lot. There were still other cars around. I said I was fine staying here. She insisted it was prettier down there, less wind. I hesitated. Then she reached over and touched my arm lightly and said she liked more privacy. That word again. Privacy. I told her honestly that I was more comfortable staying where there were other people. Her smile disappeared for a second. She looked toward the other cars, then back at me. Then she asked if my sister could hear audio through the tracking app. I said no, it is just location. She relaxed slightly at that, and that was when my phone buzzed. Location paused. I frowned. I had not touched the app. I looked at the screen. The blue dot was gray now. It said sharing unavailable. My heart started racing. I checked my settings. Location services were still on. I opened the family app again. Still gray. She was watching my face carefully. She asked what happened. I said the app stopped sharing. She tilted her head like that was strange. I tried refreshing. Nothing. Then my phone buzzed again. Location resumed. The blue dot turned blue again. But it was not at the overlook. It was about half a mile down the road, near a wooded area I had passed on the way up. I felt cold. I said that was not right. She leaned closer to look. She said maybe the signal glitched. My phone buzzed again. The blue dot moved further down the road. Slowly. Like I was driving. But I was still sitting in her car. I opened my Maps app. It showed my correct position at the overlook. Only the family tracking app was wrong. She sat back slowly. Too calmly. I looked at her. She did not look surprised. I asked if her phone was connected to anything weird. She shook her head. I checked Bluetooth on my phone. There was a device connected. Unknown tag. My stomach dropped. I do not own any tracking tags. I tapped it. It disconnected. My phone buzzed immediately. The gray dot snapped back to the overlook. Accurate again. She was staring at me. Her expression was not confused. It was disappointed. Like something did not work. I opened the Bluetooth list again. The unknown tag was gone. I asked her directly if she put anything in my car. She laughed lightly and said that was crazy. I got out of her car without saying much else. The wind hit hard. I walked to my own car quickly. She stepped out too. Asked if everything was okay. I said I was just tired and needed to head home. She did not argue. She just watched me get in my car. As I started the engine, my phone buzzed one last time. Location paused. I looked at the app. The blue dot froze at the overlook. Then it started moving again. Down the road. Away from me. I looked up. Her car headlights turned on. She drove out of the lot slowly, in the direction of the woods. My location dot on the family app followed her path, even though I was still parked. I turned my car off. Sat there frozen. watching the dot move further away, then stop. About a mile down. I opened my Bluetooth again. Another unknown tag appeared. Connected. Signal strong. But I was not moving. I stepped out of my car and walked around it. Nothing visible. No tag on the bumper. No device under the handles. My phone buzzed. Unknown tag moving with you. But I was standing still. I looked up the hill. Her car was gone. My location dot slowly drifted back toward the overlook, then snapped back onto my real position. The unknown tag disconnected. I drove home shaking. I told my sister everything. We checked my car the next day at a shop. They found nothing. No device. No tracker. Nothing physical. I had unmatched her that night. She did not message. Did not call. Nothing. But sometimes when I open the family app, I see my location flicker for a split second before settling. Like something else is trying to pull it somewhere quieter. I knew something was off before he even sat down, but I could not explain why. It was not nerves. I have been on enough bad dates to recognize normal anxiety. This was different. It felt like when you walk into a room and realize everyone stopped talking half a second before you entered, but you do not know what they were talking about. We agreed to meet at this late-night diner off the highway. Not cute, not trendy. Just one of those places that is open 24 hours and smells like coffee and cleaning spray. I picked it because it felt public and safe. Bright lights, security cameras in every corner, bored waitresses who notice everything. I got there around 9 p.m. The parking lot was half empty. Inside, there were maybe 4 other tables occupied. An older couple sharing pie, 2 truck drivers near the window, and a girl alone with headphones in. I sat in a booth near the center, directly under one of the ceiling cameras. I remember looking up at it and feeling weirdly comforted. He walked in 5 minutes later. Tall, dark hoodie, baseball cap pulled low. He looked like his pictures, just more serious in person. Less smiling. He slid into the booth across from me without hesitation, like he had already been there before. We did the normal first date routine. Small talk. Jobs. Hobbies. How long we had been on Tinder. He spoke quietly, almost too quietly, like he did not want the people at the next table overhearing anything. I noticed he kept his phone on the table screen up. Every few minutes it would light up, but he never picked it up. Just let it glow and fade. After about 20 minutes, I realized something strange. Every time I laughed or moved my hands while talking, his eyes flicked slightly upward. Not at me, above me. I glanced up casually. There was a camera in the corner behind me. I asked him if he was okay. He nodded and said he just liked places with good coverage. That word stuck with me. Coverage. Like he was talking about signal or insurance. The waitress came by and asked if we wanted dessert. He declined quickly. I said maybe later. That is when he picked up his phone. I saw the Tinder app open on his screen. Our chat thread was visible for a second. I saw my own messages. Stupid jokes I had sent earlier that week. He tapped something. His face did not change. My phone buzzed in my purse. I reached down and pulled it out. Tinder notification. You have been unmatched. My stomach dropped. I looked up at him. He was still sitting there, still across from me, not leaving. He leaned forward slightly, elbows on the table, and he whispered that now this part is not recorded. It took a second for my brain to process that sentence. Not recorded. I instinctively looked up at the camera again. He followed my gaze and smiled slightly. He said the app logs conversations, timestamps everything, locations, metadata, but once unmatched, that thread is gone from the system the same way. I told him Tinder probably keeps data anyway. He shrugged. He said not the way people think. My heart started beating harder. I realized something else at the same time. When we matched, he had suggested 3 different places to meet, all small coffee shops with no visible cameras in the pictures. I had chosen this diner instead. He reached into his pocket and pulled out something small. Not a weapon. A tiny black device. It looked like a wireless mic transmitter. He placed it on the table between us. He said this is where it gets honest. I felt my throat tighten. I glanced around the diner. Everything looked normal. The waitress wiping down the counter. The truck drivers laughing quietly. No one paying attention to us. I asked him what he meant. He said most people behave differently when they know they are being documented, that apps create a performance, curated messages, edited photos, predictable patterns. He said he preferred raw reactions. I tried to stand up casually, saying I needed the restroom. He moved fast. Not violent, just quick enough to place his hand flat on the table near mine, blocking my path without actually touching me. He said, "Relax." My brain was racing. I told him this was weird and I was leaving. He leaned back again, calm. He said that was fine. He just wanted to ask a few questions first. I did not answer. He started describing things about me that were not on my profile. That I live in a townhouse with blue shutters. That I park on the street instead of the driveway most nights. That I go running around 6 a.m. on weekends. My skin felt cold. I asked how he knew that. He said public records are not as private as people think. That answer did not make sense for the running part. He tapped the little device on the table. He said this part is for him only. I looked at it closer. There was a tiny red light blinking. I reached forward suddenly and grabbed it. He did not try to stop me. The device felt cheap and light. I turned it over. There was no brand name. Just a sliding switch. I switched it off. The red light disappeared. He watched me the whole time, expression unreadable. He said, "Good." I asked, "Good what?" He said most people freeze. They just sit there, you acted. That word acted made my stomach twist. Like this was some kind of test. I stood up fully this time. He did not block me. He stayed seated, hands folded. I took a step back from the booth. My phone buzzed again. Another Tinder notification. I froze. I had just been unmatched. How could I get another notification? I looked down. New match. Same profile picture. Same name. But slightly different bio. It now said second session. I felt like the floor dropped under me. I looked up at him. He was still sitting there. Calm. He said sometimes the first layer is just screening. I backed away from the booth completely. The waitress looked over finally, noticing something was off. I told her quietly that I needed the check. She nodded and walked away. He did not move. He did not try to follow. He just sat there watching me like I was part of something he had already planned out. My phone buzzed again. The new match sent a message. "Ready when you are." I deleted the app right there in the diner. Completely. Account gone. I paid in cash because my hands were shaking too much to use my card. When I walked toward the exit, I glanced back once. He was still sitting in the booth. But now he was looking up at the ceiling camera again. Studying it. Like he was calculating something. I drove home too fast. I locked my door behind me and checked every window. Nothing unusual. My phone was quiet for about an hour. Then it vibrated. Unknown number. Just 3 words. Offline works better. I did not respond. I turned my phone off and left it on my kitchen counter. I have not used Tinder since. Sometimes when I drive past that diner late at night, I see someone sitting in that same booth under the camera. Hoodie, cap low. Waiting. I did not even want to go out that night. That is the part that keeps replaying in my head. I almost canceled. It was raining hard, the kind that makes the streets look oily and warped under streetlights. I remember staring at my ceiling thinking I could just stay home, order food, and scroll until I passed out. But she had already confirmed. She sent a message an hour before saying she was excited, so I went. Her profile had this calm, artsy vibe. Pictures in museums, one blurry shot of her laughing, one of her standing in front of some lake at dusk. Bio said she liked quiet places and meaningful conversations. Nothing weird. Nothing dramatic. Honestly, kind of refreshing. We agreed to meet at this rooftop lounge above a hotel downtown. It was not super fancy, but not cheap either. Drinks were like $18 for something tiny. I remember thinking if this date sucked at least, I would get a good view of the skyline. I got there first. The elevator ride-up was slow and awkward because this older couple was arguing softly behind me. When the doors opened, the rooftop was mostly empty because of the rain. The ceiling was glass, so you could hear the water hitting it constantly. It made everything sound muted and far away. She was already there, sitting in the far corner. That was the first thing that felt off. The place had open seating, but she had picked a table tucked behind this tall divider of fake plants. It was technically still in the lounge, but you would not see us unless you walked around the divider on purpose. She stood up when she saw me. She looked exactly like her pictures. Maybe even better. Long coat, hair down, simple makeup. She smiled in this soft, controlled way. Not shy, not bold, just steady. After a quick hug, she said she preferred quieter spots and asked if we could stay in that corner. I did not think much of it at the time. Some people just do not like being in the middle of things. We ordered drinks. The rain got heavier. You could barely hear the music playing from the bar. It felt like we were in our own bubble. She asked me a lot of questions. Not normal first date stuff like what do you do or what shows do you watch. More specific, do you live alone? Do you ever tell people where you are when you go on dates? How often do you change your routine? I joked about her sounding like a detective. She smiled but did not laugh. I answered casually, yes, I live alone. Sometimes I tell a friend where I am. My routine is boring. Gym, work, grocery store. She nodded slowly like she was taking notes in her head. Halfway through the first drink, she leaned in slightly and asked if I would mind moving even further back. I looked confused. There was this small section behind another divider, almost like a semi-private booth. It was darker, and the lighting back there flickered a little because one of the bulbs was loose. She said she just wanted more privacy. Again, I did not think too hard about it. The place was not crowded. It felt harmless. We moved. Back there, the noise from the rain was louder, almost overwhelming. It made conversation feel strange, like we were underwater. She seemed more relaxed in that darker corner. She started telling me about her last few dates, how some guys were intense, how some did not listen, how some panicked easily. I asked what she meant by panicked. She shrugged and said some people just do not handle pressure well. Pressure from what? She did not answer directly. She just took a sip of her drink and looked at me for a long second. My phone buzzed in my pocket. I ignored it. She asked if I was going to check it. I said it was probably nothing. She smiled again, that same steady expression. Then she reached into her bag. At first, I thought she was grabbing her phone. Instead, she pulled out a small voice recorder. Not huge, just one of those slim black devices with a red light. She placed it on the table between us. I laughed because I thought it was a joke. She did not laugh. She said she liked documenting important moments. I asked if this was one of those social media projects or something. She said no, it was personal. I felt this tiny knot form in my stomach. The rain kept hitting the glass above us. The light flickered once. My phone buzzed again. This time she reached across the table and gently put her hand over my wrist. Not aggressive, just firm. She said it was better not to interrupt. My brain started catching up to the weirdness. I tried to pull my hand back casually. She did not tighten her grip, but she did not let go immediately either. Then she said it. She thanked me for not struggling like the others. For a second, I honestly thought I misheard her because of the rain. I asked what she meant. She looked at me like I was the one being confusing. She said most people react faster. They get loud. They try to stand up quickly. That is when I realized something else. I felt heavy. Not dizzy exactly, just slow. Like my body was a step behind my brain. I had only had one drink. I do not drink much, but I know my limits. This was different. I tried to sit up straighter. My arms felt weak. She was still calm, still steady. She said she appreciated cooperation. I looked around the divider, trying to see if anyone was nearby. The rooftop felt empty now. The bar area was out of sight from where we were. The rain was so loud it covered everything. I tried to stand. My legs worked, but barely. She did not grab me or force me down. She just watched. She said most people make it messy. Messy how? My thoughts were lagging. She reached into her bag again and pulled out her phone. She turned the screen toward me. It was a notes app. There was a list of names. 6 of them were crossed out. Mine was at the bottom. No mark next to it yet. I felt panic finally cut through the heaviness. I pushed back from the table too fast and almost fell sideways. She stood up calmly. She did not chase me. She did not yell. She just watched me stumble around the divider. My vision blurred for a second. I knocked into a chair. Someone near the bar looked over. I forced my legs to move toward the elevator. I heard her voice behind me, still calm, still even. She said it did not have to be difficult. The elevator felt like it took forever. When the doors opened, I practically fell inside. I kept pressing the lobby button over and over. My reflection in the mirror looked pale and confused. My phone buzzed again in my pocket. I ignored it. When I got to the lobby, the brighter lights helped a little. The front desk guy looked at me strangely, but did not say anything. I walked outside into the rain without an umbrella. The cold air helped clear my head. I did not look back. I got into my car and locked the doors. My hands were shaking so bad I almost dropped my keys. Once inside, I finally checked my phone. I had 3 missed notifications. 1 from Tinder. 1 from an unknown number. 1 from my bank saying a small $1 transaction was attempted but declined. I opened Tinder first. It said your match has updated her bio. I clicked it. Her bio now said seeking calm personalities only. I felt sick. I blocked her immediately, Unmatched, deleted the app. The unknown number had sent one message. Thank you for staying composed. I changed my number the next day. I do not go to rooftops anymore. Sometimes when it rains hard at night, I can still hear that sound on glass and I think about that list of names. And how mine was almost crossed out. I did not think the word alone could sound like a threat until she said it the way she did. It was supposed to be a normal date, quick drinks after work, nothing serious. I had matched with her earlier that week. Her profile was simple but confident. 1 photo in the kitchen, 1 at a beach, 1 sitting on the hood of a car at sunset. Her bio said she appreciated privacy and quiet homes. I did not think much of that at the time. We talked for 4 days. She asked the usual stuff first. What do you do? What are you into? Do you live with roommates? That question came up fast. I told her I live alone. That was true. Small apartment, 3rd floor, no pets. She responded with a smile emoji and said she liked that. I joked that most people think living alone is boring. She said she finds it peaceful. We agreed to meet at this wine bar tucked behind a grocery store in the strip mall. It was one of those places that looks unimpressive from the outside, but is cozy inside. Dim lighting, candles on tables, quiet music. Not many people go there on weeknights. I got there first. The place was half empty. A couple near the window whispering. A guy alone at the bar scrolling on his phone. I chose a table near the middle so it felt visible. She walked in 5 minutes later. Black coat, hair down, calm expression. She looked exactly like her pictures. She pepped me quickly and sat down across from me. At first everything felt normal. We ordered drinks, talked about work. She laughed at a story I told about my neighbor blasting music at 2 a.m. Then she leaned forward slightly and asked if I really live alone. I nodded. She asked how long I had been living there. I said almost 2 years. She asked if anyone had keys besides me. I said no. She nodded slowly like she was confirming something. I felt a slight unease but told myself I was overthinking it. After about 20 minutes, she said something strange. She said Tinder only matches her with men who live alone. I laughed because I thought she was joking about her type. She did not laugh. She said she tested it. She changed her profile preferences, adjusted age ranges, distance, everything. But no matter what she did, the only consistent factor was that the men she matched with always lived by themselves. I asked how she could know that before talking to them. She said she does not need to ask directly. She can tell by small things in their photos. Background details. Lack of shared spaces. No visible signs of roommates. She said she confirmed it with every match eventually. I felt uncomfortable hearing that. I joked that maybe Tinder just knows her type. She shook her head. She said it is not about preference. It is about access. That word sat heavy between us. I asked what she meant. She looked around the bar slowly, like she was checking who was nearby. Then she asked if anyone would notice if I stopped replying tonight. My heart skipped. I forced a small laugh and said of course people would notice. She tilted her head. Who exactly? I said my sister texts me most nights. She asked if that was routine or random. I said random but frequent. She nodded like she was calculating something. She asked if anyone would physically come to my apartment if they did not hear from me. I felt my stomach tighten. I said probably not immediately. She leaned back and took a slow sip of her drink. She said that is interesting. I did not know how to respond. I checked my phone casually. No new messages. The bar felt quieter suddenly. She asked what floor my apartment was on. I told her third. She asked if the building had security cameras. I said maybe in the lobby. She asked if neighbors ever check on each other. I said not really. She smiled slightly. Said she prefers places where people mind their own business. I felt cold even though the bar was warm. I tried to shift the conversation to something lighter. She answered but kept circling back, asking about my schedule. What time I usually get home. If anyone tracks my location. I said no one tracks me regularly. That was true. She looked satisfied with that answer. My phone buzzed. I jumped slightly. It was just a group chat notification from work. She noticed my reaction. She asked if someone was expecting me home at a certain time. I said not exactly. She leaned forward again, lowered her voice slightly, asked again if anyone would notice if I stopped replying tonight. This time her tone was different, less curious, more focused. I told her that question was weird. She did not deny it. She said she just likes to understand risk. I asked risk of what? She smiled faintly instead of disappearing. My chest tightened. I glanced around the bar. No one was paying attention to us. I felt very aware of how isolated our table felt even though we were in public. She pulled out her phone, opened Tinder, turned the screen toward me. She scrolled through her matches. Every guy looked similar. Different faces but similar setups. Solo apartment photos. Bathroom mirror selfies. Kitchen shots with no extra dishes. She said it is a pattern. She said the app must be filtering for her. I said that sounds impossible. She shrugged. Said algorithms are smarter than people think. My phone buzzed again. This time it was a text from my sister asking how the date was. I felt sudden relief. I showed her the text casually and said, see, people check in. Her expression changed slightly. Almost annoyed. She asked if my sister knows where I am. I said yes. She went quiet for a moment. Then she asked if my sister would drive here if I stopped answering. I said probably. She stared at her drink. I felt the need to end the date. I said I had an early morning and should head out soon. She did not argue. She just nodded slowly. We stood up. She hugged me briefly. Her hand lingered on my back a second too long. She whispered that living alone is a luxury. I did not respond. I walked out to the parking lot. Cold air hit me. I felt relieved to be outside. I got into my car and locked the doors. My phone buzzed immediately. Tinder notification. She unmatched you. I stared at it. Then another notification popped up. New match. I opened Tinder. Her profile appeared again. Same pictures. Same bio. But there was an added line. Seeking independent men. I deleted the app on the spot. As I drove home, I kept checking my mirrors. No one followed. When I got to my apartment, I locked the door and double-checked every window. I texted my sister that I was home. She replied instantly. I slept with my phone next to me that night. Around 2 a.m. it buzzed. Unknown number. Just one message. Alone confirmed. I did not reply. I have not gone on a date since without telling these two people where I am, and I do not mention living alone anymore. I knew it was not just a glitch because the timer did not freeze. It kept moving, and it had my name on it. I have had apps crash before. Freeze. Show weird error messages. That is normal. But this was different. This was deliberate, like something was tracking time for a reason. I matched with her 2 weeks before we met. Her profile was simple. Soft smile, glasses, a couple photos in bookstores, and one at a rooftop party. Her bio said she liked puzzles and escape rooms. I thought that was kind of cool. Different from the usual travel and gym stuff. We talked casually for a while. She asked a lot about how spontaneous I was, whether I preferred structured plans or going with the flow. I said I was somewhere in the middle. She seemed to like that answer. We decided to meet at this board game cafe downtown. It was a place where you could rent games for like $5 an hour and sit at big wooden tables. Bright lights, shelves full of colorful boxes. Lots of groups laughing and arguing over cards. It felt safe, public, loud enough that nothing weird could really happen. I got there first and grabbed a table near the center of the room. She walked in a few minutes later. Signature photos. Slightly shorter than I expected. Calm expression. She smiled and waved when she saw me. We picked a simple card game and started playing. Everything felt easy at first. She joked about being competitive. Teased me when I misread a rule. It felt normal. About 30 minutes in, my phone buzzed on the table. I ignored it. Then it buzzed again. She glanced at it and said I could check if I needed to. I picked it up, expecting a text from my friend. It was Tinder. That was strange because we were literally on a Tinder date. I opened the app. Instead of my matches or messages, the screen was black. In the center, white numbers were counting down. 01432. Above it was a label. My full name. I froze. I blinked and refreshed the app. The timer kept going. 01429. 01428. I felt my chest tighten. I looked up at her. She was watching me carefully. Not smiling. Not confused. Just observing. I asked if she had ever seen Tinder glitch like that. She tilted her head slightly and asked what it showed. I turned the screen toward her. The timer was still running. 01412. She leaned closer. Her face did not show surprise. She said maybe it was a new feature. I laughed nervously and said what kind of feature counts down with someone's name. She shrugged lightly. Said maybe it tracks how long dates last. That did not make sense. Why would it show only on my phone? I closed the app. Waited a few seconds. Opened it again. Still there. 01347. I felt heat rise in my face. I tried logging out. The app would not let me. Every time I tapped log out, it just returned to the black screen with the timer. She asked how much time was left. I told her around 13 minutes. She nodded slowly, like she was calculating something. I started to feel very aware of how far the exit was from our table. The cafe was still busy, people laughing, dice rolling on tables, nothing unusual. I asked her if she had any idea what this was. She said maybe it was testing compatibility thresholds. I did not know what that meant. She picked up her own phone and opened Tinder. She showed me her screen. Normal, matches, messages, no timer. I felt isolated, like the glitch was targeted. The timer kept counting down. 01205. I could feel my heart beating faster. I tried force closing the app. Restarted my phone. As soon as it powered back on, a notification popped up. Session resumed. I opened Tinder again. Black screen. 01152. I swallowed hard. She leaned back in her chair. Asked if I usually get anxious under pressure. I told her this was not normal pressure. She nodded. Said most people start to panic around the 10-minute mark. That sentence made my stomach drop. I asked what she meant by most people. She did not answer directly. Instead, she asked what I thought would happen when it hit 0. I felt a wave of fear hit me. I said it was probably just a stupid bug. She smiled faintly. Said that is one possibility. The timer hit 0:10:00. I stood up suddenly. She looked up at me calmly. I said I needed air. She said if I leave, it might reset. That word again. Reset. I asked reset what? She shrugged. Said the process. I felt dizzy. I looked around the camp. Everyone else seemed so normal. So unaware. I walked toward the counter and asked the employee if their Wi-Fi had been acting weird. He said no. I stepped outside for a second. Cold air hit my face. My phone buzzed. I looked down. Tinder notification. Reentry detected. I opened the app. 08:43. I had not even gone far. I went back inside because standing alone outside felt worse. She was still at the table, stacking the cards neatly. She asked how much time was left now. I told her 8 minutes. She nodded. Said interesting. I sat down again, feeling trapped by my own curiosity. I wanted to see what would happen, which scared me more than anything. The timer hit 05:00. My breathing was shallow. She leaned forward slightly. Said most people either run or confront by now. I asked what happens if someone stays. She smiled slowly. Said that is rare. The timer hit 02:00. My hands felt cold. I thought about just throwing my phone across the room. Instead, I stared at it. 01:00. She was not blinking much. Just watching. 0:30. My heart was pounding in my ears. 0:10. I felt frozen. 0:05. She whispered that this is the part where reactions matter. 0:01. The screen went black. Completely black. Then text appeared. Evaluation complete. I felt my stomach drop. The app returned to normal. Matches, messages, everything looked fine. No timer. No label. I looked up at her slowly. She was smiling now. More relaxed. She asked how I felt. I said confused. She nodded like that was the correct answer. I grabbed my phone and said I had to leave. She did not try to stop me. She just said that I lasted longer than most. That phrase echoed in my head as I walked out. Lasted longer. In the parking lot, my phone buzzed one last time. Tinder notification. Profile updated. I opened it. My own bio now had a small line at the bottom. Trial completed. I deleted the app immediately. I have not downloaded it since. Sometimes when my phone lies for even a second, my chest tightens. Like somewhere in the background, a clock is still counting. I did not understand what she meant at first, and that is the part that bothers me the most. I laughed when she said it. Actually laughed. Like it was some dry joke about dating apps being annoying. If I had taken it seriously right away, maybe the rest of the night would have gone differently. I matched with her on a Tuesday night. Her profile was almost blank. One photo of her sitting on a couch, one close-up selfie, and a bio that just said tired of being evaluated. I remember thinking that was relatable. Everyone feels judged on apps. We started talking. She was sharp, sarcastic, kind of blunt but in a funny way. She asked about my job, what I usually do on weekends, whether I live alone. I told her yes, small studio apartment. She said she liked that answer. I did not think much of it. After a few days of messaging, she suggested meeting at a late-night dessert place near campus. It was one of those spots that stays open until midnight, mostly college students hanging out and studying. Bright lights, glass display case full of cakes, loud espresso machine in the background. I got there around 9:30 p.m. The place was busy but not packed. People with laptops at tables, couples sharing slices of cheesecake. She walked in a few minutes later. Hoodie, jeans, hair tied back. She looked tired but calm. She smiled when she saw me and sat down across from me without much small talk. We ordered milkshakes, $7 each, overpriced but whatever. The first part of the date was normal enough. She talked about her job in tech support, complained about customers, asked about my hobbies. I told her I played basketball on weekends and sometimes binge-watch documentaries. Then about 20 minutes in, she picked up her phone and opened Tinder right in front of me. I laughed and said that was bold. She said she needed to check something. I felt a little weird but tried not to show it. She scrolled for a second, then her face tightened. She turned her phone slightly away from me. I asked if everything was okay. She sighed and said the app was still suggesting replacements. That word stuck out. Replacements. I joked that Tinder always suggests more people. She shook her head. Said not like this. She showed me her screen. Instead of the normal swipe layout, there was a banner at the top. Backup candidates available. Underneath were blurred profile pictures with percentages next to them. Compatibility variants. I felt confused. I asked what that meant. She said she had seen it before. Every time she got serious about someone, the app would push alternatives harder, like it was trying to keep options open. I said that sounded like marketing. She looked at me carefully. Then she said she hoped after tonight it would stop. I asked what tonight had to do with it. She smiled faintly. Said she appreciated cooperation. Cooperation with what? She leaned forward slightly. Said usually when she reaches this stage, the other person resists. Resists what? She did not answer directly. Instead, she asked if I felt committed easily. I told her we just met. She nodded. Said exactly. My phone buzzed. I looked down. Tinder notification. Priority match available. I frowned. I opened the app. At the top of my screen was a new section I had never seen before. Optimization in progress. Below it, a small spinning icon. I refreshed. It did not go away. She was watching me closely. She asked what mine said. I told her. She nodded slowly. Said it usually syncs by this point. My stomach tightened. I asked, sync what? She said behavior. I felt I was missing something obvious. I closed Tinder. Put my phone face down. Tried to steer the conversation somewhere normal. Asked about her favorite movies. She answered but kept glancing at her phone. Every few seconds, she refreshed Tinder. Her expression shifted from tense to relieved. Finally, she exhaled slowly and said thank you. I asked for what? She looked directly at me and said for cooperating. My chest felt tight. I asked what she thought I was cooperating with. She said staying. That word hit hard. She said most people leave when the prompts start appearing. I felt cold. I picked up my phone again. Tinder notification. Evaluation alignment achieved. I stared at it. I opened the app. The optimization banner was gone, replaced with a small check mark next to her name in my matches. Status stabilized. I swallowed. I asked her if she had ever seen that before. She said only twice. I asked what happened the other times. She looked down at her milkshake. Said the app suggested replacements. I felt like my brain was moving through fog. I asked what that even meant in real life. She shrugged. Said the app knows patterns. When engagement drops, it compensates. I told her I was not planning on dropping engagement. She smiled. Said that is good. My phone buzzed again. I opened it without thinking. Her profile had updated. Bio now said active selection confirmed. I looked up at her slowly. She seemed calmer now. Less tense. She asked if I planned on going on other dates this week. I said I had not scheduled any. She nodded. Said that helps. I asked helps what? She leaned back and said the system does not like divided attention. System. The word felt heavy. I glanced around the dessert place. Everyone else looked normal. Laughing. Studying. No one staring at us. My phone buzzed again. Backup candidates removed. I felt dizzy. I closed the app completely. She finished her milkshake and stood up. Said she should head home. I asked if she wanted to walk together to the parking lot. She nodded. Outside, the air was cool. Streetlights buzzing faintly. She stopped near her car and turned to me. She said she hoped the app would stop suggesting replacements now. I forced a small smile. Said I hope so too. She hugged me quickly, then got into her car. As I walked to mine, my phone buzzed one last time. Tinder notification. Candidate locked. I felt my stomach drop. I opened the app. At the top of my profile was a small icon I had never seen before. Exclusive pairing active. There was no option to swipe anymore. No new matches. Just her. I tried logging out. Error. I tried deleting the app. It reinstalled itself after a few seconds. I stood there in the parking lot staring at my phone. Exclusive pairing active. The next morning, the app was gone. Completely gone. No icon. No account. Nothing. I searched for it in the App Store. It said open instead of download. But when I tapped open, nothing happened. I have not seen her since that night. Sometimes I wonder if the app stopped suggesting replacements for her, and if that means it started suggesting me to someone else instead. I knew something was off when he corrected me about a street I had walked my whole life. It sounds small, almost stupid, but that is how it starts. Not with a scream or a chase. Just a quiet sentence that makes you realize someone knows your habits better than they should. I matched with him on Tinder on a random Wednesday night. His profile looked normal. Picture at a baseball game, one in a hoodie at the beach, one smiling next to a dog that was probably not his. Bido said he liked long walks and knowing the city well. I remember thinking that was kind of vague. We talked for about a week. He asked about my job, what area I live in, what I usually do on weekends. I kept it general. I said I lived near downtown, but did not give the exact street. He said he liked walking dates better than sitting somewhere loud. We agreed to meet at a small coffee shop near the park. It was one of those late evening spots that serves tea and pastries until 10 p.m. Warm lighting, wooden tables, soft music, nothing weird. He was already there when I walked in. Tall, dark jacket, hair neatly styled. He stood up immediately and smiled. Normal. Polite. We talked for about an hour. He was easy to talk to. Asked thoughtful questions. Laughed at the right times. Nothing felt wrong at first. Around 9:30 p.m., I said I should head home. He immediately stood up and said he would walk me. I told him that was not necessary. My place was only a few blocks away. He insisted. Said he did not like the idea of me walking alone at night. It sounded protective, not controlling. So I agreed. We stepped outside. The air was cool and quiet. The streets were not crowded, but not empty either. A few cars passing. Streetlights casting long shadows. I started walking down the main road toward my apartment. After about half a block, he gently touched my elbow and said the other route was faster. I laughed and said I always go this way. He shook his head slightly and said no, if you cut through the side street near the bookstore, it saves time. I paused. I had never mentioned a bookstore. I asked how he knew about that. He shrugged and said he explores the area a lot. I nodded slowly and kept walking my usual way. He fell into step beside me but looked slightly tense. About another block down, I turned left instead of right. He stopped for half a second, then corrected me. Said my building was the other direction. My stomach dropped. I looked at him. Asked how he knew where my building was. He did not hesitate. Said I mentioned living above a bakery once in our messages. That was true. But there are 3 bakeries within a few blocks. I told him I sometimes take different routes. He smiled, but it looked forced. We kept walking. I decided to test something. Instead of turning onto my actual street, I kept going straight toward a busier intersection. He slowed down slightly, then said softly that this was not the way home. My chest tightened. I asked how he could be so sure. He looked at me carefully and said he usually turned before this. Usually. I felt a cold wave move through me. I asked what he meant by usually. He hesitated just a second too long, then said he had noticed patterns in our conversations, that I mentioned landmarks in a certain order. That is how he pieced it together. It sounded almost believable. Almost. We reached the intersection. I pretended to check my phone like I was answering a text. He stood close behind me. Too close. I could feel his presence right at my back. I turned right instead of left. Not toward my apartment at all. Toward a brightly lit grocery store that stays open late. He stopped again. Then quickly adjusted and followed. He said this way is longer. I said I like longer walks. He stared at me for a moment, then forced a small smile. As we walked, I noticed something else. Every time we passed a street that actually did lead to my building, he glanced down it, like he was confirming something. We reached the grocery store parking lot. Bright lights, people coming and going. I slowed down. Said I needed to grab something quickly. He said he would wait outside. I told him he did not have to. He insisted again. That word again. Insisted. I walked inside. Stood near the entrance pretending to browse a display. Through the glass doors, I could see him. He was not looking at his phone. He was looking down the street, toward my apartment. I stayed inside longer than necessary. When I finally walked back out, he straightened up. Asked if I was ready to continue home. I told him actually my friend was coming to pick me up. That was not true. But I said it casually. He looked confused for a second, then said that is not what you usually do. My heart started pounding hard. I asked what he meant by usually again. He swallowed. Said he just assumed. I stepped back slightly. Told him I was fine from here. He did not move. Just stood there. Then he said something that made my stomach twist. He said if you take the alley behind the bakery, you can get upstairs without using the main entrance. I felt dizzy. I have used that alley before. Once. And I never mentioned it to him. I asked how he knew about that. He said he noticed when he was nearby last week. Nearby? I asked nearby where. He shrugged. Said he likes walking at night. I felt exposed standing there under the bright grocery store lights. I said firmly that I was going to wait inside. He stepped closer. Lowered his voice. Said I do not need to change my routine for him. That he already knows it. My chest felt tight. I told him this was weird. He smiled faintly. Said I am just trying to keep you safe. I did not respond. I walked back into the grocery store and stood near the customer service desk. After a minute, I peeked outside. He was gone. Just gone. No sign of him on the sidewalk. No car pulling away. Nothing. I waited another 10 minutes before calling my friend for real this time. She came and picked me up even though I was only a few blocks from home. When I got back to my apartment, I noticed something. My porch light was already on. I never leave it on. I went inside quickly and locked the door. Later that night, my phone buzzed. Tinder notification. He unmatched you. I opened the app anyway. His profile was gone. No chat history. Nothing. I closed Tinder and deleted it. The next morning, when I left for work, I saw fresh footprints in the alley behind the bakery. Right under my window. I do not take different routes anymore. But sometimes when I walk home, I feel like someone is still expecting me to turn in a certain corner. I should have walked out the second my phone vibrated. Not because a Tinder notification is scary by itself, but because we were sitting across from each other when it happened. There was no reason for anything on that app to change while we were mid-conversation, and yet it did. I matched with her on a random Saturday afternoon. Her profile was minimal. One close-up selfie, one photo of her standing in front of a gray wall, and a bio that said tired of pretending. That line stuck with me for some reason. It felt dramatic, but kind of intriguing. We messaged for a few days. She was blunt, almost blunt in a refreshing way. She asked real questions. What do you actually want? What do you lie about on first dates? What would you hide if you thought it made you look bad? I joked that everyone hides something. She replied that she does not anymore. We agreed to meet at this late-night ramen place downtown. Small, narrow, open kitchen at the front where you could see the steam rising from the pots. It stayed open until midnight and was usually busy. I got there around 8:45 p.m. She was already sitting at the bar facing the kitchen. She looked exactly like her pictures. Same expression, like she was always halfway between amused and bored. I sat down next to her. We ordered food. The place was loud enough that conversation felt private even though we were shoulder to shoulder with other people. At first it felt normal. She asked about my job. I asked about hers. She said she worked freelance, which sounded vague but not unusual. About 20 minutes in, she asked what the worst thing I had ever done on a date was. I laughed and said probably oversharing. She said she did not believe that. She looked at me in a way that felt like she was trying to peel something back. I started telling a story about a date that ended awkwardly. Mid-sentence, my phone buzzed in my pocket. I ignored it. Then it buzzed again. She glanced at me and smiled slightly. I pulled it out. Tinder notification. You have been unmatched. My stomach dropped. I looked at her immediately. She was holding her phone loosely in one hand, still smiling. I opened Tinder. Our chat was gone. Her profile was gone. Completely erased. I looked back at her, confused. Before I could say anything, she leaned closer and said, "Now we can be honest." The way she said it made my chest tighten. I asked what she meant. She set her phone face down on the counter. Said Tinder is just performance. Curated bios. Filtered photos. Polite versions of ourselves. Once unmatched, there is no record. No chat history. No easy way to report. I felt cold even though the ramen steam was rising in front of us. I said that sounded unnecessary. She shrugged. Said she prefers conversations without digital footprints. I glanced around the restaurant. People slurping noodles, laughing, completely unaware. I asked why she unmatched me. She said because she wanted to talk without layers. I told her we were already talking. She shook her head slightly. Said not really. She asked what I had lied about on my profile. I said nothing major. She tilted her head. Said everyone lies. I felt trapped in the noise of the restaurant. Like the sound was pressing in on me. She leaned closer. Her voice calm, almost gentle. She asked if anyone knew exactly where I was. I said a friend knew I was out. She asked if they knew who I was with. I hesitated. I had not told anyone her name. She noticed the pause. Her smile widened slightly. She said that is the problem with apps. People meet strangers and do not tell anyone enough details. I felt my heart start to beat harder. I told her that was normal. She said normal does not mean safe. Then she asked what would happen if I walked out right now and never came back to Tinder. I said nothing. She said exactly. No trace. I felt like she was building something with her words. Like she had planned this conversation. I tried to shift the mood. Asked if she wanted to get dessert somewhere else. She looked disappointed. Said you were still deflecting. I stood up slightly from my stool. She reached out and lightly grabbed my wrist. Not aggressive, but firm. She said, "Do not ruin the moment." I pulled my hand back. People nearby glanced over but quickly looked away. She lowered her voice. Said she just wanted to see who I really am without the app between us. I said this was weird. She smiled again. Said it only feels weird because you are not used to honesty. I stepped back from the counter. Told her I was going to leave. She did not stop me this time. She just watched. As I walked toward the door, my phone buzzed again. I looked down. Tinder notification. New match. Her face. Same pictures. Same bio. Like nothing had happened. I stopped walking. I turned around slowly. She was still sitting at the counter, looking down at her bowl. I opened Tinder. Her profile was there, sweepable, as if we had never met. I felt dizzy. I swiped left. Profile unavailable. I looked back up. She was watching me now. That half smile again. I left the restaurant without saying anything else. Outside, the air felt heavy. I walked a few blocks before checking my phone again. Another Tinder notification. You have been unmatched. But I had just unmatched her. I opened the app. No sign of her profile anywhere. I deleted Tinder immediately. That night, around 1 a.m., my phone buzzed. Unknown number. Just one message. Now we can be honest. I did not reply. I changed my number the next day. Sometimes I think about how easy it was for her to erase the digital part of us. Like the date existed only in my head. And hers. I have not used Tinder since. Because the idea that someone can just remove the record mid-sentence and smile about it still makes my chest feel tight. I did not see the whole notification at first. Just 2 words before he flipped his phone over so fast, it almost slid off the table. Target locked. I wish I had convinced myself I misread it, that it said something normal like ticket locked or budget locked. But I know what I saw. The letters were clear. Bold. Right against his dark screen. We matched on Tinder about 5 days before the date. His profile looked average. Gym picture, one in a suit at a wedding, one sitting in the driver's seat of a car with sunglasses on. Bio said he worked in sales and liked late-night drives. Nothing dramatic. We talked casually. He was confident, but not overly flirty. Asked about my job, my hobbies, whether I live alone. I said yes. Small 1-bedroom near the river. He said he liked quiet areas. We agreed to meet at this rooftop mini-golf place downtown. It was on top of a parking garage with neon lights and loud music. People everywhere. Groups laughing. Drinks in plastic cups. It felt chaotic and public enough that nothing bad could really happen. I got there first. He showed up about 10 minutes later. Tall, athletic build, wearing a black jacket. He smiled when he saw me and gave me a quick hug. The first part of the date felt normal. We grabbed clubs and started playing through the course. He joked about how bad he was at mini-golf. He let me win a couple holes. It felt easy. After about 20 minutes, we sat at one of the small metal tables to take a break. Music blasting from speakers. City skyline glowing behind us. That is when his phone buzzed. It was face up on the table. The screen lit up. I saw it clearly before he reacted. Target locked. He moved fast. Flipped the phone face down so hard it made a loud clack on the table. I froze. He forced a laugh and said work stuff, but his jaw looked tight. I said that sounded intense for work. He shrugged. Said he works in competitive sales. I nodded slowly, but my stomach felt weird. I tried to brush it off. Maybe it was some stupid game notification. We kept playing, but something had shifted. He was more focused now. Less playful. Watching me more than the game. At the next hole, his phone buzzed again. Face down this time. He did not flip it. Just placed his hand on top of it. Like he was covering it. I asked if everything was okay. He said yeah, just notifications. We finished the course and sat back down. I told myself I was overthinking it. Then his phone buzzed a third time. He hesitated before picking it up. The screen lit up briefly as he lifted it. I caught another glimpse. Tracking active. My heart started beating harder. He quickly locked the screen and slid the phone into his jacket pocket. He asked if I wanted another drink. I said maybe later. I felt cold even though the rooftop was warm from all the lights. I tried to keep the conversation normal. Asked about his job in more detail. He said he works with clients who require precision. That word stuck with me. Precision. I asked what that meant. He said timing matters. Location matters. Commitment matters. I forced a small laugh. Said that sounded serious. He stared at me for a second too long, then smiled. Said everything is serious if you frame it right. My phone buzzed in my purse. I jumped slightly. It was just a text from my friend asking how the date was. I replied quickly that it was fine. He noticed me texting, asked who it was. I said a friend. He nodded, but his expression shifted, almost irritated. A few minutes later, he suggested we go somewhere quieter. There was a lower level of the parking garage that had a small lounge area with couches and string lights. Less crowded. I hesitated, but it was still inside the venue. So I agreed. We took the elevator down. As soon as the doors closed, his phone buzzed again. This time he did not flip it fast enough. I saw the notification clearly. Proximity confirmed. My chest tightened. He saw me see it. Our eyes met for a split second. He locked the screen quickly and shoved it back into his pocket. The elevator felt smaller. I asked him what that was. He said automated reminders. I set reminders for what? He shrugged. Set deadlines. We stepped out onto the lower level. Fewer people. Quieter music. A couple sitting on one of the couches, but otherwise mostly empty. We sat down. He leaned back, studying me. I felt exposed under the string lights. I asked him directly if that notification said target locked. He did not answer right away. Just watch me. Then he smiled slightly and said, "You have good eyes." My stomach dropped. I asked what that meant. He said nothing personal. Just terminology. Terminology for what? He looked around briefly, then back at me. Said some systems use that language. Systems. My breathing felt shallow. I asked what system he was talking about. He leaned forward slightly. Said apps collect more data than people think. They measure reactions. Distance between devices. Time spent in proximity. I felt dizzy. I asked if he was joking. He did not laugh. His phone buzzed again. He did not take it out this time, but I could see the vibration through his jacket. He stood up suddenly. Said he needed the restroom. I watched him walk away toward the hallway near the elevators. My heart was pounding. I pulled out my phone. Opened Tinder. His profile was still there. Nothing unusual. I refreshed. For a split second, a banner appeared at the top. Engagement level high. Then it disappeared. I froze. I refreshed again. Nothing. Normal interface. He came back a few minutes later. Sat down calmly. Asked if I was having fun. I said it was interesting. He smiled faintly. Then his phone buzzed again. He pulled it out this time and angled it away from me. But I leaned slightly to the side. I saw part of it. Final phase initiated. He locked the screen quickly. My chest felt tight. I stood up. Said I needed to leave. He reached out and grabbed my wrist lightly. Not aggressive, but firm. Said there was no need to rush. I pulled my hand back. People at the other couch glanced over. He let go immediately. Raised his hand slightly like he had done nothing wrong. I walked toward the elevator without looking back. My phone buzzed in my hand. I looked down. Tinder notification. Match updated location. I stopped walking for a second. I had not shared my location on Tinder. I opened the app. His profile had a small green dot next to it. Active nearby. I closed the app and stepped into the elevator. As the doors closed, my phone buzzed again. Unknown number. Target disengaged. I felt cold all over. I got to my car and locked the doors. Checked the parking garage around me. Nothing unusual. No one watching. I drove home fast. That night, I deleted Tinder. Changed my privacy settings on everything. Sometimes I still think about how calm he looked when he saw that notification. Like it was just confirmation. Like something had finally aligned. I did not realize my name was almost at the bottom of her list until she turned her phone toward me. It sounds dramatic saying list, but that is exactly what it was. Not just matches on Tinder, not just a chat history, an actual list, typed out, organized, ranked. I matched with her on a Friday night when I was half bored and half curious, Her profile was minimal but confident. One photo in a bookstore, one on a balcony at night, one close-up with no smile. Her bio said she liked closure. That word felt harmless at the time. We messaged for about a week. She was calm, almost analytical in the way she texted. She asked about my routines, what time I usually got home, whether I live alone. I told her yes, small apartment near the train station. She asked if my neighbors were loud. I said sometimes. She replied that noise can be useful. I did not think much of that. We agreed to meet at a quiet cocktail bar tucked under an old theater. It had low ceilings, dim lights, velvet booths. Kind of a moody place, not crowded on weeknights. I got there first and chose a booth near the wall. She walked in about 10 minutes later. Black coat, dark hair pulled back, neutral expression. She did not smile big, just a small polite nod when she saw me. We ordered drinks, $14 each. Overpriced, but whatever. At first, the conversation felt normal. She asked about work. I asked about our hobbies. She said she liked organizing things, planning, tracking patterns. I joked that she sounded like a project manager. She said something like that. About 20 minutes in, she asked how many Tinder dates I had been on this year. I shrugged and said maybe 5 or 6. She nodded thoughtfully. Then she reached into her bag and pulled out her phone. She unlocked it and opened her notes app. I expected maybe a funny screenshot or something. Instead, she turned the phone toward me. It was a list of names. First names. About 15 of them. Each one had a date next to it. Some had short notes in parentheses. Quiet. Talks too much. Lies about living situation. I felt my stomach tighten. I asked what that was. She said past matches. She scrolled slowly. I saw a couple names crossed out. Not deleted. Just a thick line drawn through them. I asked why some were crossed out. She said completed. Completed what? She did not answer directly. Instead, she scrolled down further. My name was near the bottom. No line through it. Just the date of tonight next to it. I felt my chest tighten. I laughed nervously and asked if she always keeps track like that. She said she likes knowing where things stand. I said that looked intense. She shrugged. Said it helps avoid loose ends. As we kept talking, she casually moved her thumb up the screen. Paused at one of the crossed out names. Then, while we were mid-conversation about something random like travel, she drew another line through a different name. Slowly. Right in front of me. My heart started pounding. I asked what she was doing. She said updating. Updating what? She looked at me calmly and said that one had not responded in 3 days. So she closed it. Closed it. The way she said it felt final. I asked if she deletes their numbers too. She said sometimes she does not need to. I felt uneasy in a way I could not explain. The bar felt smaller suddenly. The music louder. She locked her phone and placed it on the table. Then she leaned forward slightly and asked what I thought about permanence. I said I was not sure what she meant. She said some people leave things open. Conversations. Connections. She prefers clarity. I nodded slowly, trying to keep the tone light. She asked if anyone would notice if I disappeared from Tinder tomorrow. I felt a chill. I said probably not immediately. She nodded like she expected that answer. Then her phone buzzed. She glanced at it quickly. I could not see the screen clearly, but I saw my name at the top of something. She smiled faintly. Then she unlocked the phone again and opened the notes list. She scrolled to my name. Paused. And with her finger hovering, she looked at me. Asked how honest I had been tonight. I said pretty honest. She tilted her head slightly. Said that is subjective. My breathing felt shallow. She drew the line. Slowly. Straight across my name. My heart felt like it dropped into my stomach. I stared at the screen. My name now looked like the others. Crossed out. I asked what that meant. She looked up at me and said it means you will not be a loose end. I felt dizzy. I asked if she was joking. She did not laugh. She said she hates unfinished business. I glanced around the bar. A couple at the far end talking quietly. Bartender wiping glasses. No one paying attention. I stood up slightly from the booth. She stayed seated. Calm. She said there's no need to panic. Panic was not even the right word. It felt heavier than that. I asked what happens after someone is crossed out. She said it depends. On what? On how cooperative they are. That word hit hard. I stepped back from the table. She did not move, just watched. Her phone buzzed again. She glanced at it, then back at me. Said sometimes the ad helps her decide. I asked what she meant by that. She shrugged. Said Tinder suggests when to move on. I pulled my phone out of my pocket. Opened Tinder. Her profile was still there. Our chat intact. I refreshed. It froze for a second. Then her profile disappeared. Unmatched. I looked up at her. She was still sitting there, phone in hand. She smiled faintly. Said now it is simpler. I felt trapped between the dim walls of that bar. I told her I was leaving. She did not try to stop me. She just said thank you for the clarity. I walked out into the cold night air, heart pounding. As soon as I reached the sidewalk, my phone buzzed. Unknown number. Just one message. Closure achieved. I blocked it immediately. When I got home, I checked Tinder again. Her profile was gone. Not just unmatched. Gone. Like it never existed. I deleted the app that night. Sometimes I think about that list. About how organized it looked. How calm she was while drawing that line. And how easy it seemed for her to decide someone was finished. I should have lied faster. That is what keeps replaying in my head. Not the question itself, not even the way he asked it. Just that tiny pause before I answered. That half second where I hesitated and he saw it. I matched with him on Tinder after a long week at work. His profile was simple. One photo hiking, one at a barbecue with friends, one in a suit at what looked like a graduation. His bio said he liked meaningful conversations and late night walks. Nothing dramatic. We talked for about 5 days. He was polite. Asked thoughtful questions. Nothing that set off alarms. He asked where I live, but only generally. I said near downtown, close to the river. He did not push for details. We agreed to meet at a small art exhibit opening in an old warehouse district. It was one of those pop-up gallery events with string lights, abstract paintings on brick walls, and cheap wine in plastic cups. Crowded enough to feel safe, but not chaotic. I got there around 7 p.m. The building was half full. Music playing softly from speakers in the corners. Groups of people talking in low voices. He was already inside, standing near a large canvas splattered with blue paint. He waved when he saw me. He looked exactly like his pictures, maybe a little taller. He smiled easily and handed me a plastic cup of wine. The first half hour felt normal. We walked around the exhibit, made jokes about how neither of us understood modern art, talked about work, about travel. He seemed relaxed, steady eye contact, calm voice. Then, about 40 minutes in, we drifted toward the back of the warehouse where fewer people were standing. The lights were dimmer there. A couple leaning against the wall nearby, but otherwise quiet. He asked if I liked places like this. I said yeah, they feel different from normal bars. He nodded. Then, casually like he was asking about the weather, he asked if anyone knew exactly where I was. The question felt out of place. I laughed slightly and said my friends knew I was out. He did not smile back. He asked if they knew the exact location. I paused. I do not know why I paused. Maybe because I was thinking about how specific he meant. Maybe because I'd only told my roommate I was going to an art thing downtown, not the exact address. In that half second of hesitation, his expression changed. Not dramatically, just subtly. Like a weight had lifted. He seemed relieved. That is the only word for it. Relieved. I answered finally and said not exactly, just the area. He nodded slowly. Said that makes sense. I felt cold even though the warehouse was warm. I tried to brush it off. Asked him why he was curious. He shrugged. Said he thinks it is important for people to stay connected. That sounded almost caring, but his eyes were too focused. He asked if I share my location with anyone. I said no, not usually. He nodded again. Another small exhale. I felt something tighten in my chest. We walked toward another painting. He kept the conversation going like nothing had happened. But I noticed he positioned himself slightly between me and the exit. Not blocking it, just subtly closer. I told myself I was overthinking. People move around naturally. Then he asked what time I planned to leave. I said maybe around 9. He glanced at his watch. Said that gives us time. Time for what? He smiled faintly and said to talk. I looked around the room. Still people there, but fewer now. It was closer to 8:30. Some guests were leaving. I checked my phone. No new messages. I typed a quick text to my roommate saying I was still at the exhibit. I did not mention his name. He watched me text. Asked who I was messaging. I said my roommate. He asked if she would come looking if I stopped replying. The question hit hard. I laughed awkwardly and said that would be dramatic. He tilted his head slightly. Said maybe. I felt like the walls of the warehouse were closing in. I said I was going to grab another drink. He offered to come with me. I said I would be right back. As I walked toward the front, I felt his eyes on my back. I grabbed another plastic cup of wine and stood near the entrance. I considered leaving right then, but I told myself I was being paranoid. He joined me a minute later. Stood close. Closer than before. He asked if I trusted him. I said we just met. He smiled. Said that is honest. Then he asked again if anyone knew exactly where I was. This time more direct. I forced myself not to hesitate. I said yes. My sister has my location. That was not true. But I said it confidently. His expression changed instantly. The relief was gone, replaced with something tighter, more controlled. He nodded slowly. Said that is smart. The music in the warehouse felt louder suddenly. I checked my phone again and actually sent my sister a message with the address. Just in case. He watched me do it. Did not say anything. A few minutes later, he said he needed some air. Asked if I wanted to step outside. I said no. I preferred staying inside. He did not push. But his mood had shifted. Less relaxed. More distant. I said I should head home soon. He nodded. Did not insist on walking me this time. We stepped outside together anyway. The street was quieter than before. Only a few cars parked along the curb. He stood there for a second like he wanted to say something. Then he asked one last time if anyone knew exactly where I was tonight. I held eye contact and said yes. He studied my face like he was trying to see if I was lying. Then he gave a small nod. Said that is good. We said quick goodbyes. No hug. No handshake. Just distance. I walked toward my car and did not look back. When I got inside and locked the doors, my phone buzzed. Tinder notification. He unmatched you. I stared at the screen. Then another notification appeared. New match. I opened the app out of habit. His profile showed up again. Same pictures. Same bio. Like nothing had happened. But the distance indicator said less than 1 mile away. I closed the app immediately. Drove home without stopping. When I got inside my apartment, I double-checked the locks. Later that night, around midnight, my phone buzzed. Unknown number. Just one message. Hesitation matters. I did not reply. I blocked it. Sometimes I think about that half-second pause. How small it was. How easy it would have been not to hesitate. And how different his face looked when he thought no one knew where I was. I have replayed that moment in my head so many times that it almost feels fake now, like something from a show. But it was real. The smell of the bar, the music, the way her breath felt against my ear. All of it was real. I matched with her on Tinder after a friend convinced me to re-download it. Her profile was simple. One selfie in her car, one at a beach, one blurry picture at what looked like a concert. Her bio said she liked intense connections. I did not think much of that. Everyone tries to sound deep on dating apps. We talked for about a week. She was funny at first, sarcastic, a little blunt but not in a mean way. She asked what I did for work, where I live if I had roommates. I told her I live alone in a small apartment near the college campus. She said she liked that I was independent. We agreed to meet at a sports bar downtown on a Saturday night. Loud place, lots of people. Big screens showing games. It felt public and safe. I got there first and grabbed a high top table near the middle of the room. People everywhere, groups cheering at the screens, waitresses moving fast with trays of drinks. She walked in about 10 minutes later. Black jacket, ripped jeans, hair down. She looked like her pictures, maybe a little more serious in person. We hugged quickly and sat down. Ordered drinks, $10 each, overpriced but expected. At first it felt normal. We talked about work, about how weird dating apps are. She laughed at my story about accidentally super liking someone. About 20 minutes in, she leaned closer across the table and asked if I was nervous. I said a little. She smiled and said good. That felt strange. She started asking more pointed questions. How many girls have you dated this year? Have you ever ghosted someone? Do you think you are a good person? I answered casually, tried to keep it light. She did not laugh much. She watched my face carefully when I spoke. After about 40 minutes, I started to feel uneasy. Not because of anything specific she said, just the intensity. It felt like she was studying me. I told her I was going to grab another drink. She said she would come with me. We walked to the bar together. It was crowded. People pressed close. While waiting for the bartender, she stood almost too close behind me. Her hand brushed against my back once. I stepped slightly forward. When we got the drinks and returned to the table, she seemed calmer. Then she asked if I was planning on leaving soon. I said maybe in a bit. I had an early morning. Her expression changed slightly. Less playful. More focused. I said I might head out after this drink. That is when everything shifted. She leaned forward slowly, close enough that I could smell her perfume. And she whispered very quietly that if I try to leave right now, she will scream. I froze. My brain did not process it immediately. I thought maybe I misheard. I asked what she said. She did not raise her voice. She just repeated it softly. If you stand up and walk away, I will scream. My heart started pounding so hard I could hear it over the noise of the bar. I glanced around. People laughing, watching the game. No one paying attention to us. I asked why she would do that. She smiled slightly. Said people believe the first person who makes noise. My chest tightened. I felt trapped in a way I have never felt before. If she screamed in a packed bar, pointing at me, I knew how that would look. I tried to stay calm. I asked what she wanted. She leaned back in her chair like nothing unusual had just happened. Said she just wants honesty. I told her I had been honest. She shook her head. Said not completely. I felt sweat forming on my neck. I kept my voice low and steady. Told her I was not trying to disrespect her. Just that I needed to go soon. She tapped her fingers lightly on the table. Said you can go when I say you can go. That sentence felt unreal. I looked at the exit. Maybe 15 steps away, but it felt miles. I considered just risking it. Standing up and walking fast. But the image of her screaming stopped me. I imagined the crowd turning. Security grabbing me. People filming. I stayed seated. She seemed satisfied with that. She took a sip of her drink and asked if anyone knew exactly where I was. My stomach dropped. I said my friend knew I was out. She asked if they knew who I was with. I hesitated. That tiny pause again. She noticed. She smiled faintly. Said that makes things simpler. I forced myself to text my friend under the table. Sent her the bar name and said call me in 5 minutes. My hands were shaking slightly. She noticed me typing. Asked who I was texting. I said just checking something. She leaned forward again. Said if you try to signal someone, I will scream. My heart felt like it was going to explode. I told her I was not signaling anyone. She watched my face closely, like she was trying to catch a lie. A few minutes passed in tense silence. My phone buzzed. My friend calling. I did not pick up immediately. She stared at the screen. I said it was work. She said answer it on speaker. My brain scrambled for an excuse. I declined the call and texted back quickly that I would call later. She seemed slightly annoyed. She asked again if anyone knew exactly where I was. This time I lied confidently. Yes, 2 people know. I sent them the location. She studied my face for a long second, then leaned back. Her expression shifted. Less confident. More calculating. After a few moments, she said I could leave. Just like that. I did not move at first. I did not trust it. She smiled faintly and said go. I stood up slowly, half expecting her to scream anyway. She did not. She stayed seated, watching me. I walked toward the exit without looking back. Once outside, the cool air hit me hard. My hands were shaking. I walked fast down the street. My phone buzzed. Tinder notification. She unmatched you. I stopped walking for a second. Opened the app. Her profile was gone. No trace. Then another notification popped up. Unknown number. Just one message. You stayed longer than most. I blocked it immediately. I have never felt so trapped in a public place before. Sometimes when I sit in crowded bars now, I think about how loud a scream would sound, and how quickly a room can turn on someone. I thought deleting the app would fix it. That is the part that still makes me feel stupid. Like once you remove the icon from your screen, whatever was wrong just disappears with it. Clean break, no history, no connection, just back to normal. It did not work like that. I matched with him on a random Sunday night. I was bored, half watching TV, swiping without really thinking. His profile looked average. One gym photo, one hiking, one sitting on a couch with a dog. Bio said he liked long drives and being spontaneous. Nothing that stood out as weird. We talked for a few days. He was consistent, but not clingy. Asked about my job, what area I live in, if I liked being out late. I kept my answers vague. Said I lived near downtown, so that I usually went home by midnight. He said he liked that I seemed independent. We agreed to meet at a late-night diner just off the highway. One of those 24-hour places with neon lights and cracked vinyl booths. I picked it because it was public and bright. Lots of people coming in and out. I got there around 9 p.m. He was already seated in a booth near the back. I did not love that it was near the back, but the place was full enough that it felt fine. He stood up when he saw me, smiled. Normal handshake, quick hug. Nothing off at first. We ordered burgers and fries. Talked about random stuff. Music, travel, bad Tinder dates. Then, about 30 minutes in, he started asking more specific questions. Not about hobbies, about logistics. What time do you usually get home? Does anyone expect you at a certain time? Do you share your location with anyone? I laughed awkwardly and said that was intense for a first date. He smiled faintly and said he likes knowing context. That word again. Context. I told him my roommate would notice if I did not come home. That was a lie. I live alone. He studied my face like he was checking if I meant it. After about an hour, I said I should head out. He nodded slowly. Did not insist on walking me to my car, which almost made me more uneasy. I left the diner and drove home feeling unsettled, but not panicked. That night, around 11:30 p.m., I got a Tinder notification. He sent a message. It said you forgot to answer something. I did not reply. The next morning, he sent another message. Are you alone right now? That made my stomach twist. I blocked him immediately. Unmatched. Deleted the app entirely. I held my finger on the icon until it shook and disappeared. Gone. I felt relieved. Like that was the end of it. For the rest of the day, my phone was quiet. I went to work. came home, made dinner, watched two. Around 10:15 p.m., my phone lit up. I was not even holding it. It was on the coffee table across the room. The screen glowed bright in the dark apartment. I glanced over casually at first. Then my chest tightened. The notification did not look like a normal text or app alert. It was plain white text on a black background. Match confirmed. Location shared. I froze. Tinder was deleted. I walked slowly over to the phone. Picked it up. The notification was still there. No app icon next to it. Just the words. Match confirmed. Location shared. I opened my notifications. It did not show which app sent it. I checked the app store. Tinder was still deleted. I searched my phone for it. No trace. I felt my heartbeat in my throat. I opened my settings. Location services were on like usual. But under recent activity, it was an entry. Dating services. I do not have any other dating apps. I tapped it. It showed that my location had been accessed at 10:14 p.m. 1 minute ago. I felt dizzy. I went into location sharing settings. My phone showed an active share session. No contact name. Just unknown device. I tried to turn it off. It would not let me. The toggle was grayed out. My heart was pounding so hard I could barely think. I forced myself to breathe. Maybe it was some weird system glitch. Maybe something else triggered it. Then my phone buzzed again. Another notification. Route calculated. I felt cold all over. I opened Maps. It was not open. No navigation running. But in our recent apps, there was a small location icon pulsing. I closed everything. Restarted my phone. As soon as it powered back on, the same black screen appeared for a split second. Match confirmed. Then it disappeared. I checked my messages. Nothing. I checked my call log. Nothing. I walked to my window and peeked through the blinds. The street outside was quiet. One car parked across the road. Lights off. I told myself I was being paranoid. I went back to the couch and sat down, phone in hand. 5 minutes passed. Nothing. I started to calm down slightly. Then my phone buzzed again. Proximity detected. My stomach dropped. I opened location services again. The unknown device was now labeled active nearby. I looked at the front door. Locked. Chain on. I walked quietly to the door and checked the peephole. Empty hallway. My phone buzzed again. Distance reduced. I felt panic rising. I ran to the back window. Looked down at the parking lot behind my building. The same car that had been across the street earlier was now parked under my building. Engine off. Lights off. I could barely see inside. My phone buzzed. Arrival imminent. I stepped back from the window. Heart racing. I did not know what to do. Call the police and say what? That my deleted dating app was sending me messages. I grabbed my keys. Thought about leaving. Then my phone buzzed again. Location stabilized. I looked at the screen. A small map appeared. It was my apartment building. A blue dot marking my exact unit. I felt sick. Then below it, another dot appeared. In the parking lot. Stationary. My breathing felt shallow. I turned off every light in the apartment. Stood in the dark listening. A few seconds later, I heard a car door close. Soft but clear. My phone buzzed one last time. Connection established. I dropped the phone onto the couch. It landed screen up. Black. No more notifications. Just silence. I stood there in the dark, barely breathing. After what felt like forever, headlights flashed outside. The car started. Drove away slowly. I waited another hour before turning the lights back on. I have not reinstalled Tinder. I factory reset my phone the next day. But sometimes late at night, my screen lights up for no reason. Just a brief glow in the dark. And for a split second, I think I see those words again. Match confirmed.